Excel full course for beginners. All right, welcome. If you are watching this video, you want to learn Excel, and I'm going to take you from absolutely zero to genuinely confident in one sitting. Now, this is a full beginner's course. That means I am not going to assume you know anything. We're going to start from the very beginning, what Excel even is, why people use it, how the actual interface works, and we build up from there step by step until we are going ahead and doing things like creating formulas, managing data, building charts, using pivot tables, and automating repetitive tasks. Now, by the end of this video, you will be able to open Excel, build a spreadsheet from scratch, organize all of your data properly, write formulas that actually do things for you, and present your information in a way that looks clean and quite professional. Now, I do want to be honest with you about what this course actually is and what it isn't. Now, this is a beginner's course, which means everything I show you is practical, real world, and immediately usable. I'm not going to bore you with any theory. We are going to learn by doing. I'll explain the concept and then we'll do it live together on screen. This is the best actual way to learn Excel. Now, here is how this course is going to be broken down. So, in this section, as you can see, we have the introduction, okay, where I'm going to give you a whole course overview and agenda. Then moving on, we have the interface where I'm going to be giving you a full interface walkthrough. Now, obviously, this is not something that you would expect, but of course, if I'm going to go ahead and give you the whole idea of it, I am going to teach you every single aspect of it, telling you all the what's nots of Excel. Then we move over to data entry and formatting. Okay, this is one of the main foundations of Excel. How you're going to start creating cells, how you're going to start working with different things. This is something that you're really going to want to know. Then we move over to formulas and functions, where I'm going to be giving you all the major functions that all Excel people use. All those data entry people. Most of them don't even go ahead and copy paste most things. They just use functions and formulas, and things are so much easier and straightforward for them. Then moving over to data management, where I'm going to show you how to create tables, sort data, filter data, use different types of tools. Then we move over to charts. Okay, there's different types of charts that you can use. You have pie charts, graph charts, bar charts, and I'm also going to give you the proper customization that goes into them. Then we move over to pivot tables. Okay, pivot table is one of the most important things and when it comes to data entry and Excel. Okay, and this is going to be a full pivot table coverage where we're going to talk about all of its workings in depth and detail. Then we move over to data validation. Okay, now data validation is using drop downs, different types of A/B testings, rules, and protection for your data. Then we have printing, which is print setup and options. Then we have tips and shortcuts, where I'm going to show you different shortcuts that you can use, flash fills, keyboard shortcuts, and a whole lot more. Then we have dashboard build, where I am going to be showing you a capstone project, which is basically building a whole dashboard according to your data and, of course, working along with it according to yourself, manipulating it according to the actual data that you're going to want to store or keep in your Excel. Okay, then we move over to saving and sharing, where I'm going to show you the different file formats that you can save your Excel file in, how you're going to export things, how you're going to make sure that everything is in best quality when you're going to present it, and collaboration, where I'm going to show you how you can collaborate with your workspace members. Okay, so that is going to be about it, and we're going to talk about the next steps that you can carry on from. So we start with section 1, which is this intro. Then we're going to move into the actual Excel interface, understanding rows, columns, cells, the ribbon, everything that you're going to be seeing on screen. After that, we're going to get into data entry and formatting because before you can do anything useful, you do need to know how to actually put information into a spreadsheet and make it quite readable. Then we get into the heart of Excel, formulas, and functions. This is where Excel is going to become genuinely powerful. We're going to be covering the most important functions like sum, average, if, VLOOKUP, COUNTIF, and more. Each one explained clearly with a real example. Now, after formulas, we move into data management, where you have sorting, filtering, working with large data sets, then charts and visualization, because a good chart can communicate in seconds what a table of numbers takes minutes to understand. Then we're obviously going to do pivot tables, which sound pretty scary, but are actually one of the most useful and learnable things in Excel. And finally, we'll cover some time saving tips and shortcuts that will make you feel like an absolute power user. Okay, so we have a lot of ground to cover. And if everything has made sense up till now, let's get into it. So, firstly, you're going to open up your Microsoft Excel. And once you open it up, it's going to bring you to a page like this. Now, before we touch anything, let me give you a clear answer to one big question. What actually is Excel? Now, Excel is a spreadsheet application. Now, that means it is software designed to organize, calculate, and analyze information in a grid format. Now, that grid is made up of rows and columns, and where a row and column meet, you are going to get a cell. And in those cells, you can put text, numbers, dates, formulas, basically any kind of data. Now, why do people use it? Now, the honest answer is almost every industry on earth uses Excel for something. Accountants use it to manage financial records. Business owners use it to track sales, inventory, and expenses. Project managers use it to plan timelines. HR departments use it to manage employee data. Students use it for assignments. Analysts use it to process thousands of rows of data. Even people at home use it to budget their monthly expenses. Now, the reason Excel has survived and stayed relevant for decades is that it is genuinely useful for organizing and analyzing any kind of structured information. Now, once you know how to use it, you'll find yourself reaching for it constantly. Now, that's the whole thing about Excel. That's what keeps Excel going on and efficient because Excel basically allows you to create any type of data entry format and obviously carry it on according to yourself. It's a powerhouse that Microsoft has given us, and many workspaces, many people with different types of jobs use it. It's used in data entry, it's used in presentations, it's used in recording tables, it's used in data representations, and a whole lot of more things. And anything data related, Excel will help you. And there's so many things that you can pair it up with, like different types of integrations. You have Google Forms that you can pair up with Excel, and a lot of great integrations as well. And that is actually what makes it so work savvy and what makes it so useful for different types of audiences in today's work world. Okay. And of course, we're going to be going ahead and getting a really deep dive into all of this, actually understanding how we can go ahead and get all of its uses out for ourselves as well. That is actually what's going to insinuate and differentiate Excel from the normal user to a very, well knowledgeable and well understanding user. That's the whole difference between it. So, firstly and foremost, what we're going to be doing is we're going to go ahead and click blank workbook. Now, by clicking blank workbook, what you're basically doing is you're opening a new file. Now, when you open Excel, the first thing that you see is the start screen. It shows you all the recent files like it was over here. Okay. Now, in these recent files, you can also find different types of templates, and you also have the option to create a blank workbook. Now, for this course, we're starting with a blank workbook right here. So obviously, we're going to click on that, and here we go. Now, once you have a blank workbook open, what you're going to be doing is you're going to get a completely empty spreadsheet. And this spreadsheet is going to be waiting for us to do something with it. So you can go ahead and orient yourself before you do anything here. Now, this all, as you can see, is cells. Okay. These are going to be your columns. These are going to be your rows. Now, let's say on column A and row 1, this right here is a cell called A1. Okay. Then as you go on, B1, C1, D1, A2, C3, D7, all of these are going to be basic cells, places where rows and columns are going to meet. Then we have the title bar at the very top, okay, which is going to be all of this right here. Now, in this section, you're going to find the name of your file. Now, right now, it's going to say book 1 because we haven't saved it yet and given it a name. So if you come over here, click on save in the top left, you can give it a name. So let's say I'm going to call this test file. All right. And then you can choose a location for yourself. So let's say I want to save it in my downloads. We click on save. And as you can see, now we have the name changed. So once the file is saved, the name that you choose is going to appear. Now we move over to the ribbon. Now the ribbon is this large toolbar area just below the title bar. Now this contains all of Excel's tools and commands organized into tabs. You can see tabs labeled Home, all right? You have Insert, you have Draw, Page Layout, Formulas, Data, Review, View, and Help. And of course, there's the File tab as well that just takes you back to your basic dashboard. Now, each tab, when clicked, shows a different set of tools, as you can clearly see. Each tab has its own working going on in it. Now, the Home tab is basically where you're going to spend most of your time as a beginner. It has different types of formatting tools, copy pastes, alignments, number formatting, and all the basic everyday stuff. Okay, that is what it actually gives you. And it's pretty cool. You can see that each and every single other tab has different types of features to work with. Like the Draw tab has pen tools, page layout allows you to set your page margins, formulas to use different logics, data to go ahead and, copy data from here and there or manipulate it according to yourself, etc. Okay. Then what we're going to do is we're going to come back over to Home, and right here on the left hand side, just below the ribbon, you're going to see a small box that currently is going to say A1. Now, this is the name box. It tells you which cell is currently selected. So in this case, right now we have A1, but as you go on further, you can see all the names change according to the cells. So every time you click on a different cell, the name box is going to update to tell you the address of that specific cell. Okay. Now, right next to the name box, you have the formula bar. So basically, this horizontal bar is the formula bar. When you click on a cell and type something, whatever you're going to type is going to go ahead and appear on this bar. So let's say you write that, as you can see, it's going to appear on the specific bar right over here. Now, when you write formulas, the formula bar shows you the exact formula even when the cell is displaying the result. Now, this is very useful for checking and editing all of your formulas. Okay, it's really useful and it's really straightforward to do so as well. So, of course, it is a must to have something like this for yourself. Then we move over to the column headers. So along the top of the grid, now right here, you're going to see letters A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and so on. These label the columns. Excel goes from A all the way to XFD, and that's over 16,000 columns. So you can keep scrolling on the right, but it is going to be endless, because it is built for unlimited data. You will never need that many columns, of course, but they're there. So it's just good to know. Then there's the cells. The cells are on the left-hand side over here. So each cell has an address based on its column, letter, and row number. Okay. So these row numbers on the left-hand side are 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. These label the rows. Excel supports over 1 million rows. Again, you will never need that many, but it is good to have. The cells is the grid itself, of course. Each cell has an address based on the column and row number. Now, the cell in column A, row 1, is going to be called A1, as I told you. The cell in column B, row 3, is going to be called B3. The cell in D and row 7 is D7. Now, this addressing system is how you refer to specific cells in formulas, which, of course, we're going to get to later on. Now, at the very bottom of the screen, you're going to see a tab right here, and it's going to be called Sheet 1. Okay. Now, this is a single Excel file, which is also called a workbook, and a workbook can contain multiple sheets. Think of a workbook like a book, and sheets like individual pages. You can add more sheets through this plus icon, rename them, and switch between them by clicking the different tabs that have been provided to you. Okay, that's the whole function of using sheets for yourself. Now, basically, if you want to come here and make changes, as you can see, you can insert, delete, hide, and even add more sheets. Now, on the right side at the bottom of the grid, you're going to have scroll bars, okay, which is going to be basically this section. Now, you have scroll bars for navigating around the sheet if your data goes beyond what is visible on the screen. And at the very bottom of the screen is the status bar. It shows you different things like useful information, like whether caps lock is on, or when you select those numbers, it automatically shows you the sum, average, and account of those cells down here. It's a quick way to get basic calculations without actually writing a formula. So once we've gotten an idea of that, let's talk about navigating the spreadsheet. Now, first of all, what we're going to do to create our very own expense tracker is obviously we're going to make sure that we start from a clean slate, from a table that doesn't really have any information. Now, once this is done, in cell 1, what we're going to do is we're going to type in expense tracker, okay? Once we've written that, we're going to click on enter. Now, once that is done, what you're going to do is you're going to leave A2 blank and you're going to move over to A3. Now in A3, what we're going to do is we're going to type in let's go with date. Then in B3, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and type in category. And in category, once we've done that, we're going to move over to C3 and we're going to go ahead and write in description. And finally, in D3, we're going to go ahead and write in amount. Now, once we've written this information, basically, this is our main column section for our basic, you could say, expense tracker. And once our expense tracker has, added all the information, we have our headers. So let's go ahead and add in some data. So from here, from 4 to 10, let's fill in with some information. So in row 4 for dates, of course, we're going to go ahead and write the date format that we chose. So let's say I'm going to go with 2024 over here. Click on enter. That's our first date. Now I'm going to copy and paste this over here. And just like this, you can make, changes as you go on. Paste. I'm going to do the same thing. Basically come over right here, double click on this. And of course you are going to want to make sure that whatever, cell you're formatting it to, you're making the appropriate adjustments. So we're going to come here, go ahead and name this 19. Come here, let's go with 24th. Let's come here. I'm going to change the month to 4. Come here, change the date to 10. And finally over here, let's change this to 04. Now, once we've had our dates in, what you're going to do is you're going to start adding the categories. So let's go with food. Let's go with transport. Then let's go ahead and add food again. Let's add utilities. Let's go with entertainment. Let's go with food again. And let's go with transport again. Okay, so we've written this. Then we have descriptions. Now, description is basically what, we have a category, but what kind of food. So let's go with grocery on food. Then with transport, we're going to go with fuel. With food again, let's go with restaurant. In utilities, let's go with bills. In entertainment, let's go with something like movie. In food again, let's go with something like coffee shop. And in transport, let's go with Uber. And then finally, we have the amount. So for amount, again, you can go ahead and start adding in different types of amounts you want to go with. So I'm going to go ahead and add in the different amounts. And yeah, there we go. So once we've added these things, now we have a small data set. Okay, so you're going to notice a few things. Now the dates are going to be gone to the left when I typed them, which might mean Excel recognized them as text. Okay, so basically what you're going to do is you're going to edit and delete the data accordingly. And the numbers in column D aligned to the right, which tells us Excel recognized them as numbers, even though it's an amount. So to edit what is already in a cell, you have two options. So the first option is you're going to click the cell, and once you've clicked the cell, you're going to press F2. Now, once you press F2, this puts you in edit mode and places your cursor inside that cell. And you can use arrow keys to move within the text as so. And you can pretty much use backspace to delete and type to add. Now, the second option is you click the cell and just start typing. This replaces whatever was in the cell entirely with what you type. And the third option is you click the cell and edit in the formula bar at the top right here. Now, to delete the contents of a specific cell, just click it. And what you're going to do is you're going to press delete. Now that clears the content, but keeps the cell formatting. All right. So if you want to clear everything, content and formatting, you're going to go ahead, right click it, go to clear contents, or just press clear all. And what that will do is it will fully delete the cell and create it as new. Okay. And editing a cell is, one of the standpoints of working with Excel. It's one of the standpoints of adding and associating yourself with proper working on the Excel platform. Now, if you start typing in a cell and change your mind, you can go ahead and press escape before pressing enter, and Excel cancels the edit and restores what was there before. Now, let's actually go with column width and row height. Okay, you'll notice that some of the columns right here are a little too narrow. They're getting cut off, or, the description column is too narrow to show the full text. So you can actually go ahead and fix that. So to resize a column, hover your mouse over the border of that specific column. Now your cursor changes to a double-headed arrow as so. You're going to click and drag the column to make it wider. So you can see now it is much more visible, you know. So you can make a column wider or more narrower according to yourself. Now, if you want Excel to automatically make the column exactly as wide as, the content in it, double click that border instead of dragging. This is called autofit and it's incredibly useful. So if I do this and I double click it, look at that. Autofill has applied itself. You can also go ahead and autofill multiple columns at once. So select all the columns you want to resize by clicking and dragging across their headers. So let's say I want to resize these, or you know what, let's go ahead and resize all the columns for ourselves. Now, once you have done that, double click any of the borders between the selected columns. All selected columns will resize to fit their content. So if you do this, look at that. Pretty incredible, right? Now, same logic of resizing applies to rows. Hover over the border between row numbers, pretty much as so. And as you can see, you can go ahead and resize the rows according to yourself as well. Now, moving on, what you can do is you can also format cells, font colors, borders, and alignment. So let's click on cell A1, right? Now let's make this spreadsheet look good. Formatting in Excel is done through the Home tab in the ribbon right here. Let's go through the main formatting options. So first of all, you see that you have a font name box right here. Okay. And then you have the font size box as well. So you're going to click on A1 and change the font to something like, let's go with Arial. Okay. So let's go with Arial Black right here. And now we have a changed font. You can also increase the size as you go on, but obviously it's the header. So we're going to click here and let's change it to 18. And now, as you can see, the expense tracker box has increased in size. Now, this generally just makes the title stand out more. Now, moving on, the B, I, and U. These are the ones that can help you make it bold, italic, or underlined. So if you want to make it, more bolder, you can click on this. If you want to make it italicized, you can click on that. If you want to make it underlined, click on that. And as you can see, you can make your header stand out more and look much more popped off. Now these headers over here, let's go ahead and select all of them as so. Let's make them bold and let's go ahead and make them italicized. I'm going to go ahead to A1 and keep it unitalicized so it doesn't, give the vibe off. Now, the A with a colored underline underneath it, this is where you change the text color. You can actually click on the drop down here to see the multiple colors that it gives you. So let's say over here for these, I'm going to go ahead to this section and I'm going to give them an orange font, just as so. Pretty simple, right? Now the paint bucket right next to it on the left-hand side lets you fill the background of cells with color. So let's give the header row a background color. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and choose all the headers. And let's give it something like a darker blue. Okay, and once we've done that, now we have proper headers. All right. Now the header text is black, and let's go ahead and you can give it a background if you don't want to. That's totally fine. Then we have these that have a darker background, and you've changed the font color to an orange as well. Now you can go ahead and change it to a white so it's more readable, but if you want to go more on the artistic side, you can choose a different color like I have on orange. Now that looks clean and quite professional. Well, let's also talk about alignment. The alignment buttons actually let you control whether text sits to the left, center, or right of the cell, and whether it aligns to the top, middle, or bottom of the cell. Now, for our headers, let's center the text. So I'm going to come right here, and this is where it says center. So if we do that, as you can see, all the texts are now in the center. And you can go ahead and move them around as you want. It depends on you. Then we have borders as well. Now, borders draw lines around or between the cells, making your data much easier to read. You can click the drop down arrow next to the borders button. Okay, so basically, right over here, you have borders. Click on the drop down, and you can choose what kind of borders you want. Now you'll have options like all borders, outside borders, thick outside borders, and more. Let's add outside borders around our data range. So you're going to choose all of this. You're going to go to the drop down, and let's say I'm going to go with outside borders. Now, once we do that, as you can see, the borders have been applied. Now, if a cell contains a lot of text and you don't want to widen the column, you can use wrap text. Now, this basically makes the text wrap onto multiple lines within the cell, and the row height increases automatically. So, basically, over here, let's say this text is something with, a big description that's not fitting in. You can simply hit wrap text, and what it does is it wraps onto the line. Or you can go with this, click on wrap text, and as you can see, it wraps onto one section. So just as so, you can use all of these if the description or the text is something that is overlapping the actual, borders of your cell or your, data lining. Now we move over to number formatting. Now this is one of the most important formatting concepts, which is the number format. The same number can look completely different depending on how it is formatted. Right now, our amounts that you can see over here look like plain numbers, but they're money. They should have a currency symbol. So, select these cells in column D that have amounts. In the Home tab right here, in the number group that you're pretty much going to find right here, you're going to see a drop down that probably says General. You're going to click on that drop down to see all the number format options. You have number, you have currency, accounting, short date, long date, time, percentage, fraction, scientific. Obviously, we want to set it to currency. So you're going to click currency, and now all the numbers are going to show with a dollar sign and two decimal places. Now this is much better. Now other useful number formats are also available, where you can find just plain old numbers, where you can show a number with a set number of decimal places and optional comma separators for thousands. Then you even have percentage, which multiplies the value by 100 and adds a percentage sign. So 0.25 becomes 25%. Important to know, when you format as percentage, you need to enter 0.25 to display as 25%, not 25 itself. You can also go ahead and choose short date or long date, where you can choose how dates display. A short date is going to be like this. Long date is basically going to be something. Wait, let me even give you an example. So we choose all of this. We're going to come here, and obviously this is short date. Let's change it to long date, and look at that. So you get the idea of short date and long date as well. And then finally, you also have something called accounting. Now, basically, this is similar to currency, but aligns the currency symbols and decimal points, which is useful when comparing financial figures in a column for yourself. This is used more by chartered accountants and people, who are more into the accounting data entry. Now, you can also create custom number formats by clicking more number formats right down here. Now, this basically gives you a lot of control over how exactly your numbers are going to appear for you. Now, let's also move over to the Format Painter. So let's go ahead to A3 right here. And what we're going to do is, talk about a massive time saver. So if you've ever formatted one cell exactly how you want it and want to copy that exact formatting to other cells, you're going to use the Format Painter. So you're going to click on the cell whose formatting you want to copy. And once you do that, you're going to click on the Format Painter button in the Home tab. It's going to look like a little paintbrush, as so. Now, once you click it, your cursor is going to change to a paintbrush icon. Now click on the cell you want to apply the formatting to, and the formatting is going to transfer instantly. So if we come over here, we're going to click it, and look at that. And if you want to apply the formatting to multiple cells or ranges, double click the Format Painter button. And once you do that, like we come over here, we double click it, and now it's going to stay active until I tell it that I don't want it. And you can do that by simply clicking on it, and it will escape. So just like this, you can use the Format Painter to pretty much go ahead and use multiple formattings for yourself as well. Pretty simple and pretty straightforward. Now, moving on, we can also talk about merging cells. Now, our title in A1 looks a little cramped up. It will look much better if it's stretched across the top of all four columns. Now, we can do that with Merge and Center. So select cells A1 through D1, and then in the Home tab right here, what's going to happen is you're going to get the option to merge and center. So once you click on it, this basically merges the four tabs and makes your text look like this. The title now spans the entire width of our data, and it looks much more polished. A word of caution about merging: it can cause issues with sorting and some formulas. Use it for titles and presentation purposes, but do avoid merging cells inside your actual data area, because that obviously makes it look quite untidy, quite, not professional, and, it just doesn't give a good view to the data entry specifics. Now let's talk about conditional formatting. So what we're going to do is we're going to choose the cell D4 to D10. Conditional formatting automatically formats cells based on their values. It is a powerful visual tool that helps you instantly spot patterns, highs, lows, and anomalies in your data. Let me show you. You're going to select the cells, like let's say D4 to D10. You're going to go over to the Home tab, and in your Home tab, what you're going to be doing is you're going to go to this side, and here it's going to say Conditional Formatting. Now, once you click it, you're going to see a menu with several options. First of all, there's Highlight Cell Rules. Basically, this is going to let you highlight cells that are greater than, less than, between, equal to text that contain a data occurring or duplicate values. So basically, you can choose a formatting style. Like, let's click greater than and let's set it to 80. Okay. So let's say I'm going to go, let's disable that. I'm over here, greater than, and let's go with that. And here it says, with light red fill with dark text. Let's go with the yellow fill. And I'm going to click on OK. So now you can see that the fill is going to come right up here. Now, any expense over the specific amount that I gave it turns yellow. You can also add another rule. So let's say I'm going to come over here and let's go with less than. So right about here, I'm going to go ahead and write in so anything less than, let's go with 40. What you're going to do is you're going to light red fill with dark text, click on OK, and look at that. So now all the texts that are going to be less than 30 are going to be with a red fill. Now we can see at a glance which expenses are large and which are small. Now moving on, color scales is also pretty important because this applies a gradient of colors across the range based on value. Now, higher values get one color, lower values get another. Now, this is very good for heat map style visualization. Then we have data bars. Now, this basically adds a mini chart inside each cell, which is proportional to the cell's value. Visually, it shows relative size of each number. Now we have icon sets as well, which adds small icons like arrows, traffic lights, or stars to indicate whether values are high, medium, or practically low. Okay. Now, conditional formatting is one of those features that basically immediately make your spreadsheet look so much more professional and useful. And of course, we are going to use it so much more as we go on. Now, as you can see, we have gotten a pretty clear and consistent idea of data entry and the cell formatting. And this, of course, keeps you much more, specified and much more, uniform and going ahead with the basics of things like Excel's basic data entry. And of course, data entry is the main foundation of Excel. Without knowing data entry, you don't know anything in Excel. So we talked about, how you can set up different types of cells, how you can set yourself up with the actual, workings of editing them, changing fonts, adding in colors, filling them in, appropriating columns, headers, and rows with each other, adding the specific formatting according to yourself, however your cell works, etc. These are all things that are pretty coexistent within Excel, and it is something a lot of users miss out on. And obviously, they don't get the full working of Excel without it. So, of course, it is something that is really important, and that completes our section with data entry and cell formatting. And now, what we're going to move on to is going to be the formulas and functions section, which is the heart of Excel. Now, this section is going to be the most important section of this entire course. Formulas are what make Excel so powerful. If you can write formulas, you can do almost anything in Excel. Okay. And that's the best part about it. So let me start with the basics. A formula in Excel is going to be an instruction that tells Excel to calculate something for you. Every formula is going to start with an equal sign. Okay. That equal sign tells Excel don't treat what follows as text. treat it as an instruction to calculate. So for example, in this cell right here, I'm going to type is equals to, and we're going to write in 2 plus 2. Now, once we've done that, we're going to click on enter. And as you can see, the cell is going to show 4. Now, that is a formula. Simple as that. But the real power is that formulas can actually reference cells. So instead of typing the numbers directly, you reference the cells that contains the number. That way, when the numbers in those cells change, the formula result updates automatically. So basically, let's go ahead and actually delete this expense tracker and let's start totally fresh. So we're going to come here, right click, and of course, you're going to click on clear contents. And what this does is it basically goes on ahead and clears everything that we have placed inside this specific section. Okay. And as I told you, by simply deleting it, what you're doing is you're pretty much only deleting the main area. If you click on clear content, that will go ahead and clear the actual settings you apply to it as well. Now, once we've done that, let's come over to this section. Now, we're going to go ahead and keep it like this. We're going to come to F, and let's say in cell 10 of F, we're going to go to F1, and we're going to write in 10. We're going to click on enter. Once we've done that, we're going to come to F2 and write in 20. F3, write 30. And once we've done that, in F4, we're going to write is equals to, and we're going to write F1, and we're going to write in plus. We're going to write in F2, and we're going to write in plus again, and we're going to write in F3. So now we've created a reference where it actually highlights the cells that we're actually talking about. And once we do that, we're going to hit enter, and look at that. The answer over here is going to be 60. And the cell where you've applied a formula, if you click on it, in the ribbon tab over here in formula bar, you can actually see the formula applied to it. Now in F3 or in F4, I typed in F1 plus F2 plus F3. Excel is going to look at F1, it's going to see 10. It's going to look at F2, it's going to see 20. It's going to look at F3 and see 30. Basically, it adds them and shows 60 in F4. Now, if I change F1 to, let's say, 50, I click on enter. As you can see, it basically updates it. So it's going to automatically update as you change the values. And that is going to be the core concept of formulas. They create live connections between cells. And if I, change this to, let's say, 10, as you can see, it's going to bring it down the value of 10. That is simply how straightforward and simple it is. Now, as we go on, in basic Excel formulas, the arithmetic operators are pretty basic and straightforward, okay? So first of all, there's going to be plus for addition. Then there's going to be minus for subtraction. There's going to be asterisk for multiplication. And it's asterisk, not the letter X. Then there's, this one right here, which is going to be, for divide, which is going to be slash. Then there's obviously exponentation, which is power, which you can find on the number 6. So that's power. And then there's percentage, which obviously varies on different, systems, but in my case, it is shift 5. So basically, we have addition, subtraction, multiplication, dividing, exponentation, and percentage. Now, let me show each one quickly. So in this cell right here, G1, we're going to type in 200. And let's say in G2, we're going to type in 50. Now, once we do that, over here in G3, we know that if we write in G1 plus, let's go with G2. Now, this is going to be basically give us 250, right? Now, in the next cell, let's go ahead and pretty much write something different for ourselves. So I'm going to go ahead and write in G1 minus G2. If we do that, as you can see, it's going to give us 150. Then here, let's go with G1. Let's go with asterisk G2. Now that is going to give us 10,000. And we're going to go with G1 divided by G2, which is going to give us 4. Then we're going to go with G1, and we have exponentation, and we're going to go with G2. That is going to give us a pretty big value. And then we're going to go with G1 plus G2, and you can ask for percentage, which is going to give you the percentage value for it. And of course, it is always the same. If I make changes to these values, it's going to change all those answers for me as well. If I go with 20 right here, look at that. All the values change accordingly. All right. So Excel follows standard order of operations. Parentheses first, then exponents, then multiplication and division, then addition and subtraction. Use parentheses to control the order for yourself. So for example, 2 plus 34 is going to give you 14. Multiplication first, so 34 is equal to 12, then plus 2. But 2 plus 3, asterisk 4 gives 20. So always make sure to use parentheses first. Use the BODMAS formula for yourself as you go on. So, divide, multiply, add, subtract. Okay. Now moving on, this is where we get into some interesting stuff. The sum function. Okay. So let's come right here under the amount that we've added. I'm going to go ahead and delete that. Now, right here in D11, right below our expenses amount, we get into functions. Now, a function is a pre-built formula that Excel gives you. So instead of writing, D4 plus D5 plus D6 plus D7 plus D8 plus D9 plus D10, you can use the sum function, which does it in much less typing. The syntax of any function is going to be is equals to function name and the actual argument. So the arguments are the inputs that the functions need. It's usually a range of cells or specific values. So basically, to get this started and popped off for yourself, you're basically going to do is for sum, you're going to do is equals to. You're going to write in sum. And now what we're going to do is we're going to bracket D4. And we're going to add in the 2 dots. Make sure it's these dots right here. And we're going to write in D10. And now what you're going to do is you're going to close the bracket. And as you can see, it gives you a sample value showing how it's going to look as so. And once it is done and it looks like this, you're going to hit enter. And basically what's this going to do? It's going to give us a total of all of our expenses. The D4 to D10 range, it means all cells from D4 down to D10 are going to be 352. Now let me add a label next to it. So in C11, you're simply going to go ahead and write in total. Once we do that, I'm going to go ahead and add an equal to right next to it as well. And there we have it. Now you can also go ahead and sum non-adjacent ranges. So basically, if you want to go ahead and sum non-adjacents, what you're simply going to want to do is you're going to come to a box, and in a box, you're going to go ahead and write in is equals to. Of course, we're going to write in sum, open up the bracket. So let's go with something like D4 to D6. All right. And once we have done that, we write in D9 to D10. So now we're going to have a sum of non-adjacents right here. And look at that. So it's going to exclude the values that I didn't entertain and added those specific ranges. Separate multiple ranges with a comma inside the parentheses are going to allow you to do this. You can even sum individual cells. So let's say I'm going to go ahead and write sum. Let's go with D4. Let's go with D7. Let's go with D10. Okay. So what this does is it basically allows you to add in the different cells that we have. Okay, just as so. It's pretty simple and pretty straightforward. So you don't always need to choose a range of values. You don't always need to choose a specific parenthesis. You can simply have these values done as so. Okay. Now moving on, you can also sum entire columns for yourself as well. So you can go ahead and write sum, open up D, and again, you add the next value, and now it's going to sum the whole row or column. But obviously, we don't have a lot of values, so it's not really, it doesn't make sense because if you have a total in the same column, it will create a circular reference. Now, let's go ahead and find some empty cells to work in. Okay, so we're gonna move down right here, and here we have a little empty cells, right? So basically, over here, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna show you a handful of basic statistical functions that you're gonna be using constantly. So first of all, there's gonna be average. Okay, so what you're gonna do is you're gonna write an average, and once we write an average for ourselves, you're going to open up the bracket. Now, once you open up the bracket, you're going to go ahead and write D4, and we're going to write in D10. Once we do that, you hit on enter. And this basically calculates the arithmetic mean of a range of numbers. Okay. This tells us the average expense amount. Useful to know what the typical expense is going to look like from all these values, right? Then we're going to come down here. And this is where we're going to find what min is. Now, min returns the smallest value in a range. So again, you're going to hit is equals to, write in min, and we're going to choose the same amount cells. Once we've done that, close the bracket down, enter that, and look at that. It's going to tell you the minimum value in this cell. So this tells us the cheapest expense. And then finally, we have max. So is equals to, we're going to write in max, open up the bracket, D4 to D10, close the bracket, and now it's going to tell us the maximum amount of value, which tells us the most expensive item that we have. Now, we also have count. Count basically tells us how many cells in a range contain numbers. So if I come over to count, we're going to go ahead and write is equals to count bracket. Again, we're going to add in our range, which is going to be D4 to D10, close the box. And as you can see, it tells us that it's 7 boxes. Then we have count A. Now count A counts how many cells in a range are not empty. It counts both numbers and texts, and this is useful when you want to know how many rows of data you have regardless of whether the cell contains numbers or texts. So I'm going to go ahead and write in count A. And this time, let's go ahead and add in B4 to B10. Okay. And let's close it down. And as you can see, it says that we have basically 7 count A's. Then we have count blanks as well, which counts empty cells in a range. It's useful for finding gaps in your data. So you can go ahead and write count blank bracket D4 to D10, our range, obviously. And once we've added in the values, enter. And as you can see, it says you have 0 blank rows. Now to put all of these together in a clean summary area, basically we're going to create a summary table for ourselves. So let's delete all of this. Come here, hit delete. I'm going to go ahead and remove these values as well. Basically, in row 13 right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and write in summary. All right. And in row 14, I'm going to go ahead and add in the total expense, the average expense, largest, smallest, and number of transactions. Okay. So basically, first of all, we have the total expenses. We're going to add that right here. And I'm going to add in is equals to. Then we have average expenses. Again, add is equals to. Then we have largest expense equal to smallest expense is equals to. And then finally, we're going to have number of transactions. So we add that. And there we go. So once we've added this, of course, we're going to do what we always do. We're going to merge and center. And always do make sure that when you're merging and centering, the general specific value that you're adding for merge and center works well with the actual cells that you're working around with. That is something that is really code-specific for things like this. So I'm going to go ahead and expand it for now. Now over here in total expense, remember the main total that I told you. So the total expenses are going to be sum D4 to D10. We're going to add that here. That's the total expense. Average expense is going to be average. And then we're going to write in D4 to D10. Close that in. There we go. Largest expense, which is going to be is equals to max D4 to D10. Then we have the minimum expense, D4 to D10. Close that down. And then finally, we have number of transactions, which is going to be count. So count D4 to D10. Once we've done that, we have all of this going on. Now, this is what I basically mean by making Excel work for you. Our spreadsheet now automatically shows us key statistics about our expenses. And if we add new expenses or change existing amounts, all of these numbers are going to go ahead and update instantly for you. Okay, and that what keeps the main summary and the main dashboard of your work running up. And it's a pretty straightforward and great work savvy work ethic relationship between you and your Excel. Now let's move over to cell references, relative, absolute, and mixed. This is one of the most important concepts in Excel and one that many beginners don't fully understand. Now, understanding cell references will completely change how you're going to be using formulas for yourself. So first of all, there's going to be relative references. Now, relative references are the default. Basically, what's going to happen is when you write is equals to D4 in a formula, that is a relative reference. It means the cell that is this relative position from where the formula is. When you copy a formula with relative references to another cell, the references shift relative to the new position. Now, that probably doesn't make a lot of sense, so let me demonstrate it properly. Now, basically, we're going to come over to, this section right here. Let's remove the summary table that we've created. Now, in A14, in this section, what we're going to do is we're going to write in 10, okay? And as we go down, we're going to write in 20, we're going to write in 30, okay? And we're going to change this from currency to number. Now, once we've done that, what's going to happen is in B14, which is going to be this right here, we're going to go ahead and type in is equals to A14 multiplied by 2. And look at that. Basically, whatever value that we've entered is going to apply. So if I copy that formula from B14 right here and paste it into B15, the formula becomes A15 multiplied by 2 automatically. So basically, if you come here and we click on copy, you're going to come down here and you're going to paste it. Okay. You can use the paste special, which basically gives you the option to paste either just generally or the concurrent values that you're providing it. So that depends on you. You know, it depends on how you're basically working along with it. So let's say I'm going to come right over here to this format, and it's going to tell us what values we have. I'm going to come to the cell at the bottom. It's going to turn to 40. The cell at the bottom, it's going to turn to 60. That is relative referencing. Okay. Now the reference shifted down by 1 row because I moved the formula down by 1 row. Now this is usually what you basically want, and it makes copying formulas down a column or across a row very efficient. Now sometimes you don't want the reference to shift. You want it locked to a specific cell no matter where you're going to be pasting the formula. So to make a reference absolute, you add dollar signs. So basically, let's delete these examples. Okay. Come here, choose these, delete them. Now, in this cell right here, what we're going to be doing is basically we have a basic rate of a tax store. And we're going to come to F. And in, let's say, cell F1, or let's delete all of these. We're going to go ahead and, let's say, have 0.10 tax. Okay. Now, once we've done that, in column A, we have expenses. And in column B, we want to calculate the tax on each expense. The tax rate is always going to be an F1, never changing. So in B14, what you're going to do is you're going to type in it is equals to A14 multiplied by $F $1. So basically, what we're doing over here is $F $1 is an absolute reference. So when I copy this formula down to B15 or 16, the A14 path shifts to A15 or A16, but the $F $1 stays locked at F1, which is absolute. So as you can see, it's going to start creating the formulas according to itself. All right. Now, if I later want to change the tax rate, I can change F1 once, and every calculation is going to update automatically. And this is much better than having the tax rate hard coded into every single formula of mine. Now, to quickly toggle between relative and absolute reference, click inside a cell reference in the formula bar. So let's say I'm going to come over here. Now, we're going to click inside the cell reference and we're going to hit F4. And what that does is it basically turns it from a basic discrete formula to a normal formula. And once it's into a normal formula, you can go ahead and cycle through all the 4 combinations of A1, $1, $1, or $A1. Now let's talk about mixed references as well. These are references where only one part is going to be absolute. So first of all, there's $A1, where the column is locked A, but the row shifts to $1. The row is locked, but the column shifts. You use mixed references in specific situations, like when building multiplication tables or other grids where you're going to want one direction locked and the other one free. we'll see this come up naturally. Now, let's talk about another great function that is so underrated and unpopular when it comes to Excel. And in my opinion, one of the greatest things that you can get for yourself when you're using Microsoft Excel. Now, the feature that I'm going to be talking about is called the if function. Now, the if function is where Excel starts to feel like programming. It lets Excel makes decisions based on conditions. So basically, the syntax is going to be is equals to if, and now basically it's your logical test, value if true or value if false. There's three parts to it. The first part is where you're going to be adding a condition, a test that is either going to be true or false according to yourself. So basically, what's going to happen from here is so basically, those three parts are the condition, where a test that is either true or false, what to return if the condition is true, what to return if the condition is false. So, basically, let's use our expense tracker. Let's go ahead and add a column E with the header flag. Okay, so here in column E, first of all, you're obviously going to go ahead and remove that. Now, the column E is going to be called flag. Okay, we're going to add that right here. And as you can see, the formatting is automatically applied. Now, let's say we want to flag any expense over $50 as high and anything $50 or under as normal. So, basically, in E4, what you're going to want to do is you're going to type is equals to, you're going to write an if, we're going to open up the bracket, we're going to write D4 greater than 50. And once you've done that, you're going to write comma, apostrophe, high. And obviously, we're going to close that. And then we're going to write comma, apostrophe, normal. Okay. We're going to go ahead and write that in, close it out, turn it off as so. And now our formula has been generated. So once the formula is generated, you're going to go ahead and enter. Now, what's going to happen is Excel checks is D4 greater than 50. If yes, it shows high. If no, it shows normal. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to simply copy this formula and you're going to paste it as you go further below. Okay, so as you can see, it's going to show you high. It's going to show you normal. Then as you go down, this is going to be normal again. As we go down, this is going to be high. As we go down, this is going to be high. And this is going to be normal. So just like this, it's going to go ahead and manipulate these formulas for you as you go on. So you can look at the results. Any expense over $50 is going to be labeled high. Under $50, it's going to be labeled normal. And if any of the expense amounts change, the labels are going to update automatically. Now, the condition can use these comparison operators like greater than, and these operators look something like this. So you have greater, then you have less than, then there's equals to, there is greater than equals to, and then there is not equals to. There's also less than equals to as well, which is basically this. And then there is this, which is not equal to. You can also go ahead and put an if inside another if to handle multiple conditions. Now, this is something that in coding language we call nested if. So you can do three categories for this, all right? So, first of all, high for over $100, medium for $30 to $100, or low for under $30. So what we're going to do is we're going to change our condition right here. Or you know what? you can keep it all pasted. And over here, up in the formula, we already have D4 greater than 100 is going to be high, or let's go with 80. Now, once we've done that, we have high over there. Now, once we have high over here, we're going to add an if right after it. Now, once we write an if, this is where we create a new bracket. And this new bracket is going to be our nested if. All right. Now, in this, I'm going to go ahead and write D4 is going to be greater than equal to, let's go with 30. And once we do that, we're going to add in comma. We're going to write in medium, close that, comma, low, close that. Now, once this is done, you're going to close the first bracket, close the second bracket, and once all of this is done, you're going to hit enter. And look at that. According to this specific one, you can go ahead and copy it down as you go on. And it's going to go ahead and apply the nested loop to all of the blocks, cells, and columns that you've given it. Well, that's how it works. Now read it like this. If D4 is going to be greater than 80, you're going to show a high. Otherwise, if D4 is greater than equal or equal to 30, show medium. Otherwise, meaning none of those conditions were true, we're going to show low. You can nest up to 64 ifs in modern Excel, but honestly, if you need more than 2 or 3 levels of nesting, there are usually better functions like ifs or switch, which obviously we're going to look at later on. Then there's also logical operators and if conditions. You can combine conditions using and or. All right. So let's say over here, again in flag, I'm going to go ahead and delete all of that. We're going to come to the first cell. We're going to write an if, and we're going to open up the bracket. We're going to write an and once that is done, we're going to open up another bracket, and we're going to go ahead and write D4 greater than 50. And we have B4, which is going to be greater than, we're going to write in food. Okay. Obviously, food is the food expense over there. We're going to go ahead and close the bracket. We're going to add a comma. We're going to add high food expense. And once we've done that, you're going to go ahead and do that, comma, okay. Do that. And we're going to close the bracket. Once we've done that, you're going to do this. And as you can see, it's going to say, okay. Now this returns high food expense only if both conditions are going to be true. The amount is over $50 and the category is food. You can also use or functions, which is going to be, either one condition is true or the other condition is true. Now, using if formulas like this for yourself can obviously lead you to a much better, much more, you could say, uniform and a much easier work ethic to keep your work going on. And it helps you out a lot when it comes to using constructed loops and constructed mechanisms and workings for yourself. That's what keeps all of your working in place. And it helps people out a lot as well with the general, you could say, working of SUMIFs and ifs. And speaking about that, SUMIFs and basic SUMIF is what we're moving on to next. And again, these are also very useful specific conditions. SUMIF is going to add up values that meet a specific condition. SUMIFS, it does the same but with multiple conditions. So SUMIF and SUMIFS are two entirely different things. Now, this is one of the most practically useful functions in everyday Excel work. Now, to basically use the SUMIF function, what you're going to be doing is, of course, you're going to choose a cell where you're going to want to add the SUMIF, okay? Now the SUMIF int syntax is basically, let's come over to some random cell over here. Now the SUMIF syntax is equals to, then you're going to write sum if, all right. From here, you're going to add in your range criteria sum range. Okay. Now your range is going to be the column that you're checking against the condition. The criteria is going to be the condition to look for, and the sum range is going to be the column to add up when the condition is met. All right. So let's find out total spent on food from our expense tracker. All right. So once we write sum if, let's go ahead with B4 to B10. Okay. And once we have written that down for ourselves, what we're going to do from here is we're going to go comma. Let's go with food. And let's go with the range of criteria D4 to D10. You're going to close the bracket. And once this is done, you're going to click on enter. Okay. Now, this formula read is look in B4 to B10 for cells that say food. And whenever you go ahead and actually find one, add up the corresponding cell from D4 to D10. Okay. Now, this is really useful because it basically allows you to create a sum out of all the main, conditional loops that you're creating for yourself. And it's pretty useful. It's pretty straightforward. You can also use wildcards in the criteria. So basically, the asterisk represents any number of characters. The question mark represents a single character. So we could actually go ahead and change our formula. All right. So instead of food, what you can do is you can actually add an asterisk over here. Now, basically, this asterisk is going to sum all categories that are going to start with F. Now, if we enter that in, it's still going to give us the same value, of course. You can also go ahead and use comparison operators in the criteria with quotes. Okay, so in this case, let's go ahead with the comparison criteria over here. Make sure that it is inside quotes, and let's say instead of food, I want the value to be greater than 50. Now this sums all amounts that are greater than 50. All right, that's what it does. Now, basically, that is the concept of sum if. Now, just one if. Let's talk about some ifs. All right, so we're going to go ahead and delete this syntax. The sum if syntax is going to be sum ifs. Okay, you're going to keep it in a normal sum ifs. You're going to open up the bracket. Now, in this, you have sum range. You have criteria range 1, criteria 1, criteria range 2, criteria 2, and so on. Note that in sum ifs, the sum range comes first, opposite from sum if, of course, because in sum if, the sum range comes later on. So do be careful of this. This is something a lot of users misplace for themselves, and it causes them errors in their syntax. Let's find the total food expenses that are over $30. All right. So we're going to go ahead and write SUMIFS. We're going to go with the range D4 to D10. Okay. Comma. Let's go with B4 to B10 on the criteria range. Now, comma. We're going to keep food in the quotation marks, which is going to be our criteria one. Then we're going to do comma again. We're going to write in D4 to D10. All right. And once all of this is done, we're going to do comma, apostrophe, greater than 30. Now, this is going to be our formula. So this is our sum range. This is criteria range. This is the criteria. This is criteria range 2. And this is the criteria range 2's criteria. So from here, you're simply going to click on enter. And as you can see, it's going to generate the formula for you. Again, do note that sum range will come first from, it's pretty opposite from sum if. So once you found the total, some ifs can handle up to 127 conditions. In practice, you will rarely need more than 3 or 4, but obviously having a lot of conditions like this can be quite helpful for different data entry specifics and situations. Okay. And this is something that a lot of users prefer using over different conditional formattings and loops. All right. Now, moving on from here, we're going to go to a little different ifs. Again, they are ifs with conditional properties, logics, and loops, but we're going to be talking about COUNTIF and COUNTIFs. Now, the concept is the same as SUMIF, but instead of adding values, it counts how many cells actually meet the conditions. So for COUNTIF, what we're going to be doing is obviously to choose an empty cell. Now the syntax is equals to COUNTIF bracket. You're simply going to add in the range and the criteria. Now, once, how many times does food appear in column B? That is what COUNTIF actually provides. So let's say I'm going to provide the range B4 to B10. And once that is done, you're going to do comma, quotation marks, and you're going to add in food. We're going to close it. And now it's going to count that in these range of cells, how many times does food appear? So realistically, it should say 3. So let's see what it gives us. You're going to click enter, and there we go. So that is basically what COUNTIF does for you. Now let's talk about how many expenses are over $50. You can go to the same formula, and instead of food, you can simply go ahead and write in greater than 50. And instead of B4 to B10, we can go with D4 to D10. Once this is done, click enter. And as you can see, it says 3 because realistically we have 54, 84, and $100. So it does have 3 criterias above it. So that is what COUNTIF does. It just counts the range that you've provided it with the specific criteria. Now, let's move over to COUNTIFs. All right. So you're going to go with is equals to, and you're going to write in COUNTIFs. Okay. Once you have COUNTIFs in, the formula is criteria range 1, criteria 1, criteria range 2, and criteria 2. So let's see how many food expenses are over $50. So we're going to go ahead and write B4 to B10, which is our criteria range 1, and the criteria is going to be food. Then let's move over to our second criteria, which is D4 to D10, comma, and from here, we're going to keep our criteria range greater than 50. Once that is done, one thing I forgot to do was add in our apostrophe. Again, when you're adding the criteria, you need to make sure that it is in apostrophes. Once that is done, what this reads as is how many times does food have greater than 50? Now, in this case, food is not greater than 50, food is not greater than 50, food is greater than 50. So it should say 1. We're going to enter, and there we go. Now, these are extremely useful for building different types of summary reports, especially when you want counts broken down by different categories. Okay. And it's really useful if you want to go ahead and search a specific number of range in a huge data set. You don't have to go ahead and individually count different criterias. You can simply add in the COUNTIFs loop or the COUNTIFs logic, and the logic or the formula that Excel has built in is going to simply do it for you. Now we move over to one of the most important functions that Excel offers. This is VLOOKUP. Now, VLOOKUP stands for vertical lookup. It searches for a value in the first column of a table and returns a value from another column in the same row. Now, this is one of those functions that feel pretty confusing at first, but once you get the hang of it, you'll use it everywhere you go. So the VLOOKUP syntax is basically equals to, and you're going to write VLOOKUP. Now the criteria is lookup value, table array, column index number, and the range you want to look up. Now the lookup value is what you're actually searching for. The table array is the table that you want to search in. The column index number is which column of the table do you want to return data from. And range lookup is true for approximate match, false for exact match. Almost always use false, all right? So let's build a proper VLOOKUP example. Okay, so for this, I'm going to go over here and actually create a very new sheet for myself, all right? So I'm going to go ahead and delete this, come here. Now we have a new sheet. So let's actually create a product catalog. Now in column A, let's say we have product ID, all right? Then in column B, we have, let's go with product name. Then in column C, we have the price. Now, once these three headers have been made, what you're going to do from here is you're going to start adding in the info. So let's say product 1 is this, product 2 is this, and, obviously you go so on. So once you've added in the appropriate values for yourself, you have the product name over here. Now let's go with a laptop. Let's go with a mouse. Let's go with keyboard, monitor, and webcam. All right. Now, once you have added all these things, there's finally the price. So let's go with 999.25. Let's go with 75, 299, and 89. So once we've added these values, we now have an actual table. Now over here, let's create a lookup area. Now, basically in cell I2 or B2, we have laptop, okay? Now basically, once we have these values for ourselves, you can go ahead and type P003. Now we want to look up the keyboard in cell, any other random empty cell you have, we'll write our VLOOKUP. So over here, you're going to go with is equals to. And once you've done is equals to, we're going to go with B2. First, we write VLOOKUP. And you're going to write B2. All right. You're going to do comma. Once that is done, from here, you're going to write A2. Once you have done that, you're going to go ahead and select your range. Okay. So our range goes till C6. So I'm going to write C6. Now the whole table has been selected, right? Once this is done, you're going to go with comma. And now we're going to actually enter the column index number. So once the column index number has been chosen, you're going to go with comma. And we're going to write in false. Now, once you've written false, you're going to go close the bracket. And once this is done, Basically, this says in cell B2, you're going to go ahead and type P003. We want to look up the keyboard. In M2, we will write our VLOOKUP as we go on. Now, breaking this down, B2 is our lookup value. Okay. So in this case, our lookup value is P003. Okay, that is what we have. Then we have A2 to C6, which is our table, the entire product catalog, of course. Then moving on, we have our specific to means return, which returns the value from column 2 of the table, and false will mean exact match. And you can actually change this to, let's say, F2. Okay, I want to go ahead and add that value into F2. Now, once you go ahead and return this, the result should be keyboard. So once you do that, basically it should return the foreseen value for you. Okay, and of course that depends on how you choose to add in the specific concurrent values. Okay, and of course it depends on what you're basically using VLOOKUP for. It depends on how you're, insinuating it, how you're using it, etc. It's pretty important to use these types of structured values for yourself because they allow you to actually get a clear, concurrent idea of how these things work. All right. And of course, do make sure to have a pretty consistent, concurrent formula. Like in our case, we had VLOOKUP. Once we write in VLOOKUP, obviously, you're going to explain the main idea of how you want to look things up. And obviously, in the cell you want to use VLOOKUP for, you are going to want to make sure to write the actual value, right? So we have P003 over here. We obviously want keyboard. So in M2, we're going to go here, use VLOOKUP, and again, we're going to enter our specific criteria. We're going to go with L2. We have H2 to J6. That selects the whole board. Add our mean value. And finally, add our condition. So once you've added the condition for yourself, close the bracket. And as you can see, it's going to return keyboard. So L2 is going to be our lookup. H2 to J6 is going to be our table, which is the entire product catalog. 2 means return the value from column 2, and false means exact match. Now, if you change the column index number to 3, what it's going to do is it's going to return the price VLOOKUP, okay? So let's go ahead and change it to 3. Now let's see what it gives us. And as you can see, it's going to return the keyboard's price. That's pretty cool, right? Now change L2 to P001. So we come here, and we're going to go ahead and add P001. And now you're going to see it's going to turn to 999. Look at that. Pretty incredible, right? That's the power of the VLOOKUP formula. The lookup value changes, and the result automatically updates. That's the power of VLOOKUP. It pulls information dynamically. Now, VLOOKUP is always searching in the first column of your table array. Your lookup value must be in the leftmost column. Also, always use false for the fourth argument unless you know you need approximate matches, which is only useful in specific scenarios like tax brackets. One final thing, VLOOKUP will return #NA error if the lookup value is not found. You can wrap it in if error to handle this gracefully. Now, basically, if the value over here is not found, as you can see, it's going to give you this error. So if you do get this error, here we have it. We have NA, right? So it will tell you what the error is. Now, what you can do is basically you're going to come here And to use it gracefully, what you can do is you can go ahead and write if error. You're going to create a new bracket. Now, once you've created the new bracket, make sure that VLOOKUP bracket is still there. And the only addition you're going to need to make is you're going to come to the end of the VLOOKUP bracket, add in a comma, make quotation, and you're going to write in product not found. Once you've done that, close it up, and look at that. It's going to simply change to product not found. It won't give hashtag NA, which obviously gives a very unprofessional look to it. So once we've done this, we're going to go ahead to the very next thing. This that we've talked about is VLOOKUP. Now we're going to go to a more modern and a little more advanced version of VLOOKUP. Now, if you have Excel 2019 or the Microsoft Office 365 suite, you have access to XLOOKUP, which is a much more flexible and easier to use replacement for VLOOKUP. And if you want to check if you do have XLOOKUP, simply go to any cell and write an XLOOKUP. And once you write it in, you should be able to see it. Now, if you don't see it, obviously your Microsoft Excel is not compatible to use XLOOKUP yet. Now, basically, let me explain to you what the XLOOKUP syntax actually is. Now, basically, XLOOKUP is going to go ahead and allow you to look up value, look up array, and the basic formula is going to be the lookup value, the lookup array, return array if not found, match mode, and search mode. Now, the first three arguments are required. So basically, it's going to look something like X lookup. We're going to go bracket. Now, here, our lookup value is going to be L2. Okay. And of course, in L2's case, you can go ahead and add any value for yourself. So in our case, obviously, we're going to go with P003. Now here, X lookup, bracket, L2. Obviously, it sees the value now. You're going to go comma, H2 to H6. Once that is done, you're going to go comma, I2 to I6. Now, what we're asking it is to look for the value in L2, search it in H2 and H6, and return the corresponding value from I2 to I6. Okay, so in this case, obviously, it is going to return keyboard. Now, if we go ahead and click enter, obviously, it's going to give me this error because XLOOKUP does not exist in my Excel. But if it does in yours, it will give you keyboard. Now, the XLOOKUP advantages over VLOOKUP is that you specify the return column directly, not a column number. No more actual counting columns. It can also search from right to left. VLOOKUP can't do this without workarounds. For VLOOKUP, you need to make sure your value is in the leftmost column. Now, built-in if not found argument, so you don't need to wrap it in if error that we did over here, okay? And it can return multiple columns at once. And the best part is that it searches from the bottom up if you need the last match, okay? If you have access to XLOOKUP, do make sure to use it, but learn VLOOKUP before because many workplaces still use older versions of Excel where XLOOKUP is not going to be available for you. Now, moving on, we are going to go ahead with text functions. Now, working with text in Excel is a common need. So let me show you the most useful text functions, all right? So right here, in this start column, we're going to go ahead and write in our functions, right? So let's say in these cells, I'm going to go ahead and write John Smith. Then let's go with Jane Doe. Let's go with Rob Johnson. And let's go with Alice Brown. And let's go with Michael Davis. Now, basically, once you have this, the upper text function is going to convert, basically, upper is this. All right. Then upper is going to convert text to all uppercases. Then there is lower. So first of all, let's see upper, right? Now, of course, all of my text is in uppercase, so I'm going to go ahead and make Jane Doe in lowercase, right? Now here, we're going to go ahead and write upper bracket, and let's go with A2. You're going to do that, close the bracket, and look at that. Jane Doe is now going to be in upper cases. Now, the next text function is going to be lower. Now, lower is going to convert all text to lowercase. Okay, so let's go with A1. And as you can see, John Smith is now in a lowercase. Then there is proper. And proper basically capitalizes the first letter of each word. So let's go with A4. And once you've done that, as you can see, it's going to capitalize the first words. Then moving on, we have trim. Now, trim is going to be a little different. Trim goes ahead and removes any extra spaces from the text. It's especially useful when data is imported from other systems. So we write trim, and let's go with A5. All right. Now, basically, this is going to remove the leading and trailing spaces from Michael Davis. And as you can see, if there are any trailing spaces, it will remove them. So let's go ahead and, add this over here, add this like this. And once you've done that, let's go ahead and basically, redo it all. And of course, once you redo it all, what happens from there on out is it will trim it up. Then let's go ahead and delete. We have len. Now, len is going to go ahead and return the number of characters in a text string. Okay. And it's pretty useful for validating data, checking if a phone number has the right number of digits, or, checking if a name has the right number of letters in it. So let's go with A1. Now, John Smith has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And as you can see, it gives 10 because it counts the spaces as well. Then we have left, right, and mid. Now, basically, left, and we have right, and then we have mid. Now, left is going to be extracting specific characters from text. So left, we're going to go with A1. And once you do that, we're going to go with 4. So it returns the first 4 characters from the left. So in this case, it's only going to give John. And look at that. Then let's remove this and write in right. Now this is going to give us the 4 characters from right. So it's going to say myth. There we go. Now let's go with mid. Okay. So we come here, we remove right, we write in mid. And in mid, what you're going to do is you're going to give 2 values. So the first value is going to be the starting number. So let's say I want the starting number to be 3, and we want the number of characters that we want. So let's go with 4. And once we enter that, as you can see, from 3, it gave me H, N, space, and S. So that is how you work with left, right, and mid. Then moving on, we have concatenating slash and operators. Now, concatenation basically joins the text together. So basically, we can write is equals to, you can write A1, and after A1, you're going to go with the AND operator. Once you've done that, you're going to go with apostrophe, space, apostrophe. And once that is done, you're going to write in the AND operator again. And once we add in the AND operator, you're going to go with A2. Now, once you do this, basically, what this function is going to do is going to combine the content of A1 with A2 into one string. We enter it, and look at that. It gave us a space in between and added all of that. Now, if I did not add the space in between, look at this. There's no space. I can go ahead and add a recurring text as well. So like over here, I can write wife, or we can write husband, off, enter. Look at that. John Smith, husband of Jane Doe. That's how easy and simple it is to use concatenation. Or if you don't want to use and, quite frequently, you can use the concat function. So is equals to, you're going to write concat. You're going to add in a bracket. So first of all, you're going to write your first text, which is going to be A1. Then you're going to go with comma, right, and space between the apostrophes, A2. Close it up. And as you can see, it's going to give you the same function. Or another alternative, text join, which joins a range with a separator. So basically, you're going to go ahead, write is equals to, and you're going to write text join. Once you write in text join, you're going to go with bracket. All right. Once you write in bracket, you're going to go with comma, close it, then comma again. You're going to write true, comma, A1, and you're going to take it to A5. Once you've done that, you're going to close it, and it's going to join all names with a comma and space between them. So from here, you're going to go ahead and basically work your way around it. And once you do that, look at this. Now, we don't have any space, so what you can do is you can actually add the space like this. And look at that. We have a comma and a space now. Pretty cool, right? Now let's go ahead and talk about find and search. Now, find and search basically finds the position of a character or substring within the text. All right. So we're going to go with is equals to. And once we've done is equals to, we're going to write in find. Then we're going to go with bracket. Let's go ahead and add S, comma, A1. Once you've done that, you're going to basically go ahead and do this, and it's going to find where S is. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And as you can see, it tells you the position of where the S is present. Okay. Now you can also use search for yourself. So is equals to, you write in search, and we're going to go with comma. Let's go with Jane Doe on this one. So we're going to go with lowercase. Obviously, don't do uppercase because it is sensitive about case. Okay, lower and uppercase. So once you've done this, you're going to go A, and we're going to go 2. Close it down, search it, and as you can see, we have D at 6 as well. Now, of course, if I go with capital D, it's going to say 6 as well, but that depends on your device's case sensitivity. Now, Basically, from here on out, what we can do is we can move over to date functions because text functions are pretty simple. They're pretty straightforward. Obviously, you won't need the use of them a lot because not a lot of people actually go ahead and dabble around the text functionality that Excel gives you because it's a feature and it's a function that doesn't really come in a lot of use for many users. But of course, it is something worth knowing because it is something that keeps your Excel functionality and Excel working going on. So from here on out, what you're going to want to do is go to date functions. So basically, let's move over to a more clear area down here. Now, once we're here, dates in Excel are stored as serial numbers. All right. So let's say we have January 1st, 1900. Now that is going to be day 1. And each subsequent day adds 1 to itself. Now this means that you can do math with dates. So first of all, we have the function today. Okay. Now the today function returns today's date. No arguments needed. It's just today. So if we go ahead and write this, as you can see, it's going to give us the date that we have today. Then, moving on, we have the function now. Now returns the current date and time. Again, no arguments needed to that. And as you can see, it will return the date and time. Okay. Now, of course, the time is going to be present according to the main, additions you add. And these are quite volatile functions. They're going to recalculate every time the spreadsheet recalculates. Then we have date with year, month, and day as their components. So basically, you come over here and you're going to write is equals to date. And now we're going to add in the year. So let's go with 2009. We have the month, which could be, let's go with the 5th month, which is May. And then we have the date. So let's go with 15th. Now, once you've added this, what you're going to do is you're going to simply press enter. And as you can see, it's going to create the 15th May 2009. Okay, pretty simple. Then we have year, month, day. So basically, it's going to extract components from a date. So if you go ahead and write year, all right, and over here, you can simply write in a serial number. So let's say we write in something like 2009. And look at that. It's going to go ahead and return the date of that specific serial number. Now, this returns the year. What you can do is you can actually go with month as well. This will, of course, return the month. Then as you go on, you can also go ahead and add in day. And of course, as it says, day is going to return the day. Pretty simple, right? Now we go to another if statement logic that is used in dates as well. Yes, we are still talking about ifs in our Excel course. So dated ifs are basically the calculations of the difference between two specific dates. So we write dated ifs, all right? And once you write dated if, again, this is a formula that is not present in most most older versions. You are going to need the newer versions for this. But the general syntax is dated if, then the main syntax is going to be start date, end date, and, D in the end. Now, the difference in days is going to be start date, end date M, which is going to be different in months, and start date, end date Y, which is going to be different in years. So let's say the start date is going to be, Let's go with something like 2009, and you can go with 2016. And here, what you can do is you can ask it the amount of days that have passed since that. Close it up, and as you can see, it's going to return you the exact dates. And of course, the same works in concept of M and Y. So basically, if you want to go ahead and calculate a person's age using dative, this is how you're going to do so. So in dative, you're obviously going to go ahead and write in the person's birth date. Make sure to, clearly write it down. First of all comes the month. So let's say we're going to go with November. Let's go ahead and write in the day, which is going to be 5th. Okay, so 5th November 2003 is going to be our basic start date. Okay, and once you've added the birth date, from here on out, you're going to add in the date today. So today is 5/05. Then we have 23, and then we have 2026. So once you've done that, from here in the end, you're simply going to go with Y. All right. Once you've done that, as you can see, it is going to provide you the proper date that you need. Okay. And it gives you the exact age in years. But again, that is if the dated-if function is available for you in your Excel. Now, we also have something called network days. So network days is basically returning the number of whole work days between two dates. So it counts working dates between two dates, excluding weekends and optional holidays. So first of all, you're going to write in the start date for yourself. So we have network dates. Once we write this in, we're going to go with bracket. So we have the start date. So in our case, let's go with the start date as, let's go with the month. Let's go with the day. And once you've added the correct date, you're going to go with comma. Now you're going to add in the current date you want to go with. So we have this as our current day. And once you've done this, you can actually go ahead and write in a syntax for holidays. Okay. Now, if you want to go ahead and add in holidays for yourself, you can, but you can simply end the syntax over here as well. So once you've done this, it is going to give you the working dates as it goes on. That is how easy and simple network days is as well. Then we have EO month. Now, EO month returns the last day of the month. EO basically means end of. So a specified number of months away, you're going to get the last day of the month. So here in EO month, you can go ahead and open up a bracket, write in today. Obviously keep it inverted. Once that is done, you're going to do comma 0, and you're going to close it down. So basically, once you do this, this is basically a specified number of months away. You're going to go ahead and enter that, and as you can see, it will give you the date that you want. Or you can go ahead and change this to 1, and it's going to give you the last day of next month. All right, that is how simple and straightforward it is. Now, moving on, you have a few useful additional functions as well. So let me quickly go ahead and cover a few more functions that you're going to encounter quite regularly. So firstly, there's going to be round. So we're going to come over here. And for this, I'm going to obviously come over to my previous sheet. So you're going to have round. Now, round up or round down is going to be rounding functions. So for that, let's say I'm going to change the value to 2456. Okay. So as you can see, it says 54.25, right? Now we're simply going to go ahead and write round. We're going to open up the bracket, and over here, you can go ahead and either round to 2 decimal places, any specific random number. So let's go with 29.745. And you can round it to 2 decimal places. Do that. And as you can see, it rounds it up. You can also use the syntax for any current board that you have. So you can write round. Let's go with, we have D4. Okay, D5. You can write D5. And then let's go with 1 decimal place. And it should say 54.2. Pretty simple and pretty straightforward. Then, moving on, we have round up. Now, round up is a function that will go ahead and round your number upwards. So if we come here and write round up, you do that. And as you can see, it rounds it to 54.3. And then there is round down. And of course, as the name says, it always rounds to the lower digit. That is pretty much, how it is. Then we have the int function. Now you can come here, right, is equals to int. Now the int truncates to the integer. So it basically removes decimal and always rounds towards a 0. So if we go ahead and write in D5, close the bracket, you're going to see that it goes to 54. So it returns an integer, no decimal places. Pretty simple. Then we have mod. So you can go ahead and write in mod for yourself. Now mod returns the remainder after your division. So let's say I want to go with 10 and I want to go with 3. So this 3 multiplied by 3 is 9, which basically means the remainder of 1 is going to be left. So mod is your remainder. So let's see if it gives 1 or not. And look at that. We have 1 returned. So that is how you can use the mod function as well. Moving on, we have abs or ABS. Now, ABS is going to go ahead and return the absolute value. So basically, it's going to remove any negative sign. So if your value has negative signs in it, you're going to do this. And look at that. It's going to return it with a positive sign, which is going to be an absolute value of your basic number. Now, moving on, you have ifs. Now, of course, you're probably wondering, we've already talked about ifs, haven't we? And yes, we have. You're not wrong. But basically, ifs is like a nested if, but it's much cleaner. And do make sure that you have Excel 2016 or later. So basically, you're going to come over here, is equals to. We're going to write an ifs, open up the bracket. Now, in this case, we're going to write D4, and we're going to write greater than 100. And if we've done that, let's change it from D4 to, let's go with, we have D9, right? So we have D9, and I'm going to go with greater than equal to. So once we have our condition, if D9 is greater than equal to, let's go with 100. Now, once you've added your first condition, you're going to go with comma. You're going to write high. And once that is done, you're going to go with comma. And let's go with our second condition with D9 is greater than 50. Let's go with medium. And once this condition has been met, finally, we have our logical test, the third logical test, which is D9 greater than 10. Then in this case, what we can do is we can write in low. Once this is done, you're going to close it out. Let me just remove these equals to. And once this is done, in this case, obviously, it will give medium. So we go ahead And look at that. It gives us medium because it wasn't greater than 100, but it was greater than a 50. Now this reads naturally, and if greater than 100, high; if greater than 50, medium; if 50 or below, low. Now we also have switch. Now basically, switch is also a pretty fun little function, which isn't used quite often in the Excel workspace, but when used, it does do wonders for a lot of data analysts and data entriers. So basically, switch is going to reevaluate an expression against a list of values and returns the result for the first match. So we have switch. Now, in this case, let's go with B4. And the logical test is going to be if B4 is food. Once that is done, you're going to close it up. And let's go ahead and change it with, let's go with the F. Okay. Then you're going to go ahead with comma. Let's go with transport. And once that is done, obviously do make sure to keep all of these in inverted commas. It's really important to do so. So once we've done transport over here, you're going to close the inverted commas. And once that is done, you're going to go with comma. And we're going to go with T. Now, once all of this has been done, you can go ahead and create as many default values as you want. And once the default values have been created, one little mistake I made was I did not add any apostrophes over here. So once this is done, you're going to do this. And as you can see, it was food, so it returned F. So that is switch and if values, okay? That is basically creating different kinds of loops and different kinds of iterations on conditional probabilities for yourself, okay? So those were all of the likely functions that you're going to want to use in Excel, okay? Because functions are something that Excel really breeds on. Because without functions, you won't be able to pretty much create anything, functions and formulas. So we discussed formula, basically an instruction that tells Excel to calculate something. Then we moved over to basic arithmetic operators that we've talked about. Then we had the sum function. We had the average, minimum, maximum, count, and count A. There's also count blank. Then we moved over to cell references with relative, absolute, and mixed. Then we had the if functions with conditional loops and different conditional formalities and workarounds, nested ifs, logical operators and if conditions, SUMIF and SUMIFS. Then we had COUNTIF and COUNTIFs. We had VLOOKUP, one of the most important functions, XLOOKUP for the more modern type of people. And we have upper, proper, lower, trim, len, left, right, mid, concatenation for all your text functions. Today, now, date, year, month, day, dated if, network days, end of month for date functions. And then we have the last ones like round, round up, round down, int, mod, ABS, ifs, and switch. So those were all the functions and formulas that actually insinuate on Excel. And those are the heartbeat of your Excel because without them, there is no Excel formalities. You're going to have to do everything manually and obviously get a lot of frustration because doing something without formulas or functions on Excel basically just means manual work and you're doing data entry. So instead of just, typing it down, you might as well write it down on a paper because that is practically what you're doing with your time. So save your time, use functions and formulas because they are life and time savers on Excel's data entry. And once we've ended with all of that, we're going to move over to our next section, which is going to be data management. And obviously, in data management, we're going to be talking about working with larger data sets and getting a clear and consistent idea of how you're going to want to manage them and how you're going to want to work around with them. So first and foremost, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be removing all of this. Okay. And we're going to start totally fresh. We're going to start totally from the top. So let me delete these rows and show you how the general data manipulations are going to work. So once I have cleared content in all of these, so, of course, no functions remain. Now, first off, to start things off, what we're going to be doing is we're going to set up our data properly. Okay. So you're going to start off with a fresh new sheet. Okay. And of course, we're going to go ahead and name the sheet something because we're doing this like a proper tracker. Okay. We're going to create a proper data table. So I'm going to call it expenses. All right. Now, before we can go ahead and sort, filter, or analyze data properly, it's need to be set it up correctly. Now, here are the rules for clean data in Excel. So the first rule is that there should be one row per record. Okay. Each row should represent a single piece of data, one transaction, one person, one product. The second rule is one column per attribute. So basically, each column that you see should basically represent a single type of information. Don't put first name and last name in the same column. The third rule is headers in the first row only. Your column labels should be a single row at the top, no merged cells in your data area. And rule number 4, no blank rows or columns inside of your data. Empty rows in the middle of data confuse Excel tools. Data should be a continuous block. Rule 5, consistent data types in each column. Do not mix numbers and texts in the same column. Don't mix date formats. Rule number 6, no totals inside the data range. Keep totals and summaries outside and below or above your main data table. So let me build a proper sales data set. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start off with some active columns, right? So first of all, we're going to have the first column that is going to be months. Okay. Now in this, we're going to go ahead and write sales rep. Let's say over here, we're going to go ahead with region. Over here, we're going to go with product. Here we have units. Here we have, let's go with revenue. Then let's go with target. And here, let's go with achieved. So once we have created our columns, what we're going to do from here is we're going to start adding our information. Okay. So first of all, in months, let's go ahead and actually start entering the data. Let's go with Jan, Jan, Jan. Let's go with Jan again. Feb, 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 March, March. Let's go with MAR, because shouldn't really add consistent amounts of data. And May, 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 and let's go with April. So now we have around, you could say, a few 16 rows of datas. Okay, let's remove one and keep it 15. Okay. Now, once that is done, let's go ahead with some names. Okay, so sales reps are going to be the name. So let's go with Ollie. Let's go with Sarah. Let's go with David, Daniel, John, Jason, James. Let's go with Andy. Let's go with Lars. Let's go with Kirk. Let's go with Chris. Let's go with Dominic. Let's go with Mars. Let's go with Adam. Let's go with Noah. So now we have our sales reps. Then, of course, we move over to the regions. Now in regions, I'm going to go with some basic north, south, north. Okay, let me just re-edit that because this is how you're going to want to create your table lists in the start. Okay, because in the start, it won't be as simple. You are going to want to enter your data appropriately. So once you've entered the correct amounts of data, from here on out, we're going to add in the products. Okay. So in our products, we're going to go with mouse, laptop, mouse, keyboard. Let's go with headphones, keyboard, laptop, laptop, mouse, mouse, laptop, keyboard, headphones. And do make sure that all the spellings are correct, because even if one spelling is wrong, it will go ahead and cause an error when you're using formulas for yourself. Okay. So once this is done, we have the units. Now, these are going to be the units that we have sold. Let's go with 12, 23, 54, 65, 12, 9, 96, 54, 38, 91, 76, 23, 1, 43, and let's go with 20. Then there's the revenue. Now, the revenue is how much money they have actually generated. So you're obviously going to go ahead with the numbers. And what we're going to do is we're simply going to fill this out. And obviously, filling out is the best option in cases like this, because the more you fill out, the more you're obviously appropriating the correct target. And let's say for all of the targets, I'm going to go ahead with 10,000. Okay. So we're going to copy that, and you're simply going to go ahead and paste all of this. So copy, and I'm simply going to come down here, paste, come down here, paste, and just as so, you can paste all the values as you appropriately go on. It is that easy and that simple. Now, once this is done, finally there's achieved. So, have they achieved their target? Yes, 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 no, yes, no, no, yes, no, yes, yes, no, yes, yes, no. Again, make sure any spelling mistakes, do make sure to edit them out. So now, as you can see, we have a proper data table. Okay, so this is how you can go ahead and create data. Now, what we can do is we can actually make it look attractive as well, just the way I taught you. Okay, so first of all, we're gonna go ahead and wrap the text. Okay, so you can either wrap it up and fit it in the correct columns, or what you can do is simply choose all the columns, double click, and as you can see, it's going to make everything appear appropriately. And obviously, if a column is too big, you can shorten it down just like that. Now I'm going to choose all the columns, and of course, we're going to go ahead and increase the sizes of those specific columns. Let's make them bold. Okay. And once that is done, again, we're going to hit this, choose all the columns that you want to fix up. And as you can see, it's going to fix it up like that. Now we're going to choose these, and we're going to centralize them. Once they have been centralized, from here on out, we're going to give it some color. So we're going to add a blue background to it, and let's make the text white. Now, once the text is white and all of the general ideas of the products are in, from here on out, we're obviously going to construct this as a whole table. So once you have done this, you can go ahead and click on Format as Table. Now you can choose the table writing style for yourself. So let's say we click on this, we click on OK, and look at that. A table out of all of this has been created. And of course, you can go ahead and keep making changes to it. It's not done here. You can go ahead and make it bigger, change the fonts according to yourself, however you want to go ahead with. Now, once all of this has been done, from here, what we're going to do is actually learn the table formatting, right? So click anywhere inside of your data that you've just created. So before we do anything with this data, I want to show you one of the best features in Excel that many beginners don't know about, and that is Excel table. So you're going to go ahead and click on Insert. And once you click on Insert, you will find Table. Now, Excel will detect your data range automatically. And once you click on it, you're going to go with My Table as headers. And once you click on that, you click on OK. And as you can see, it will go ahead and create a table. Now, your data is now formatted as an Excel table. Look at what just happened. The headers are going to have drop down arrows. We'll use these for filtering in a moment. The rows alternate in color for readability, and the table has a name shown in the Design tab as Table 1. So basically, you can create tables like this. Now, why use Excel tables? Of course, there are several reasons to do so. So, first of all, there is auto expansion. Now, if you add new rows below the table or new columns to the right, the table automatically expands to include them. Okay, so if I come here and I'm going to write yes, the table will automatically expand itself. So you can see how incredible that actually is. Then moving on, structured references. Now, instead of referring to functions like sum, you can write sum and then a table with a revenue. So basically, what I mean is something like sum. You're going to add in the table name. So let's say in our case, it is table 2. And from here, you can simply go ahead and generate a revenue for yourself. Okay. So let's say I'm going to go ahead and write in revenue. Once we've done that, you're going to go ahead and close it up, close the bracket, and look at that. It's going to give you the total revenue that you generated. Pretty incredible, right? Then moving on, there is built-in filtering and sorting. Now, the drop-down arrows on each header let you filter instantly. So basically, you can sort from Z to A, you can sort from A to Z as you go on. Pretty simple and pretty straightforward. Then there's total rows. So in the table design tab, so basically around according to your table, you can go over ahead to your table design. And basically, what you can do is you can work around with the total rows that actually work along with it. So go to table design, and in table design, basically you can insert different slicers, summarize with different pivot tables, resize your table if you want to go along with something like that. And you can also go ahead and choose total rows where it gives you a total of all the rows at the bottom. Pretty incredible, right? Now, enabling total row and getting the dropdown lets you choose different aggregations. Now, Excel tables are the professional way to work with actual data. So always use them when you're working with a very structured data set. Now, moving on, there is sorting data. So basically, if we go ahead to the revenue tab over here, you're simply going to click on revenue and it's going to open this up. Now, sorting is one of the most basic data management tasks. So let's sort our sales data. Now, the simplest way is you're going to click the drop down arrow of revenue. And from here, you're going to go to largest to smallest, which is basically highest to lowest. So the sales rep who earned the most revenue is going to appear at the top. So once we do this, as you can see, Jason earned the most, so he is going to come at the top. Then there's custom sort. This lets you sort by multiple columns. So you're going to go to data. And once you have actually come over to the data tab, you're going to go to sort. Now, sort basically opens up this dialog. So let's sort first by region. Okay. So I'm going to come over here and let's say I want to sort by region. You're going to choose that. And within each region, by, you can do it by the revenue, okay? So on cell values, and we're going to go from, let's say, uh, region from A to Z, and you can add a new level, region, then by revenue, and let's go from highest to lowest. Now, this is very useful for regional performance analysis. If you click on OK, as you can see, it creates the sorting as so. You can also sort by cell color or font color. So if you have conditional formatting applied, you can sort by color. So for example, put all red cells at the top. So if we come over to home, go over to conditional formatting, we're going to go with, let's say, greater than, and let's say cell greater than 9. Okay. If you do that, as you can see, it's going to label it red. So just like this, according to yourself, you can sort it as you go on. Okay. Now, moving on, let's move over to another great powerhouse. Now, this is filtering data. Now, basically, if you go ahead and drop anything down, this will allow you to filter. Now, filtering lets you show only the rows that meet specific criteria, hiding the rest. Now, the hidden rows are not deleted. They are just temporarily hidden. So click on, let's say, region. Now, once we click on region, over here, you'll see a list of checkboxes for unique values. So let's say we're going to uncheck select all and then only check north and click on OK. And look at that. It's now filtered out all the ones that only say north. Now the table shows only north region data. The row numbers skip. You can see 2, 4, 5, 11, and 13. That tells you that there are hidden rows. The filter arrow also changes to show that filtering is active on that specific column. So to clear the filters, click the drop down again. And from here, you're going to click on clear filter from region, and it's going to go back totally to normal. Then we have number filters. All right. So for numeric columns, the dropdown gives you more options. So in this case, we have revenue. Let's open it up. Now, once we open revenue up, you have much more options, significantly, of course. Now, it also gives you options like largest to smallest, smallest to largest, and numbers to filters. You have equals, does not equal, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, between, etc. So it actually gives you different decent options to work with. So click any drop down for yourself. And once that is done, let's go with the above average value. And as you can see, it shows you all the above average filters. Okay. Now we only see rows where revenue is above the average revenue, instantly useful. Then there's text filters. So let's go ahead and clear these filters out. Now in text, let's say we have the product region, right? For text columns, you can filter for text that begins with and also ends with, contains, or doesn't contain specific text. Okay. So click any dropdown for yourself with text. In my case, we have the product dropdown. From here, you're going to go over to text filters and let's go with contains and let's type MO. Now, once you do this, this will only show you mouse. We click on OK and look at that. Only the mouse records are going to show for you. Now, if we go ahead and reset this, there are date filters as well for date columns. You get time-based filtering like this week, this month, last quarter, or between two dates, etc. You have multiple column filters as well, where you can filter on multiple columns simultaneously. You can filter by region is equal to north and product is equal to laptop. So you will only see north region laptop sales. That's how conditional looping in this works. And finally, to clear all filters, just go over to the data tab. And once you're here, any filters applied will be cleared if you click on the clear option. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward, and pretty easy. Moving on, let's talk about freeze panes. Okay, so let's scroll down in the data. Now, what's going to happen over here is the header row is going to disappear and you're going to lose track of which column is which. So let's say if I go ahead and increase this, the header is going to disappear. So I won't know which column I'm looking at, right? So basically, for this, freeze pane is going to come in. All right. So what you're going to do is you're going to go over to your view tab. And once you go to your view tab over here, what we're simply going to want to do is we're going to click on cell. So let's say I'm going to click on A2. And once we click on the cell A2, just below the headers, you're going to go to freeze panes and you're going to click on freeze panes. Now, once we do that, look at this. The header is actually going to go ahead and follow. So if we're like zoomed in over here, you scroll down, the headers will follow. Pretty incredible, pretty cool. And this is a pretty useful feature. The more you scroll down, the header row stays frozen at the top while the rest of the data actually scrolls. This is essential when working with large data sets. You can also go ahead and freeze columns. To freeze both row and a column, click the cell that is one below and one to the right of where you want to freeze. So one below and one right. So once you have done this, basically, you're simply going to go ahead and freeze it again. So if we go ahead and unfreeze and freeze panes again, you can see that even as we go to the right side, basically it all comes with it. And that's the whole fun about freeze panes. Okay. So to remove it, simply go to freeze panes, click on unfreeze panes, and now it is back to normal. Pretty simple. Moving on, we're going to talk about find and replace. So basically, what you're going to do on your keyboard, you're going to hit Control and H. This is going to open up find and replace. Now, find and replace is incredibly useful for making bulk changes to your data. So, if you want to, press your general, finding, you can also go ahead and click on Control F, and that opens up find. If you want to replace, you can open up replace, right? So, to search for something, like let's say I want to search up north. You're going to do this and you're going to click on find all. And look at this. It shows you all instances of north. Now, once you click Control H, that is going to open up your replace. So type to find and what to replace it with and click replace all to change every instance at once. So let's say I want to change all the instances from, let's say, Jan to January. So once we do that, look at that. It's changed it to January. Then you can turn Feb to February. Okay. Replace all. There we go. And just like this, make changes to the rest as well as you go on. So that is how you can use the find and replace option as well. For example, if we decided to name North to Northern region throughout our data, we'd have to, type North in multiple times. So better than that, just use find and replace it all, and you're good to go. Now, even when you're still in the find dialog, if you click on the options tab, Basically, it's going to give you a much more advanced menu option with match case, match entire style contents, search by rows or columns, look in values versus formulas. Now, you can also go ahead and talk about removing duplicates. So, real data often has duplicate records. Excel has a built-in tool to remove all of them. Now, basically, what you're going to want to do is you're going to go ahead and click anywhere in your table. So let's say I'm going to click here. You're going to go to your data tab, and over here, you're going to get the option of removing duplicates. So if you click on remove duplicates, it shows you all the duplicates that it has found. Excel is going to ask which column to check for duplicates. If you select all columns, it will only remove rows where every single column matches another row. If you select just certain columns, like sales rep and month, it removes rows from there. So let's say I'm going to keep all of that, and I'm going to remove the rest. Okay, so there we have it. Now, just month and sales rep, we're going to click on OK. And if no duplicate values have been found, it will not remove those values. Okay. Then moving on, once you click OK, Excel tells you how many duplicates were removed and how many unique rows actually remain. Always do make sure to keep a backup before running remove duplicates just in case, because many people are going to remove duplicates and then have a hard time finding their old data once again. Okay, so this is really important to keep in mind. Now, moving on, there are text to columns. Sometimes data comes in where multiple pieces of information are crammed into one cell. So, for example, John Smith in one cell when you need first name and last name in separate columns, or a date formatted as 2024 115 that Excel is treating as text. Now, text to column actually splits one column into multiple columns. So basically, let's say over here, we're going to type John Smith in a cell, right? So I'm going to go ahead and increase the size of the table. And over here, we're going to write John Smith. And right here, we're going to write Jane Doe. Now, once we have done this, we're going to go to the next column and write Robert Johnson. Okay, just as an example. Once you have done this, you're going to go to the data tab again. And in the data tab, you can actually check text to columns. Now, what you're going to want to do is you're going to go to the three tabs over here. You're going to hit text to columns. Once you do this, basically, the first step to do this is choose delimited. Okay. Now, the data in delimited is separated by a character like a space or comma, or fixed width, where data splits at set character positions. That depends on you. Okay. So once we've chosen that, I'm going to choose the delimiter space in this case. Now, once you've done that, you're going to click on next. Now, once this happens, choose the format for each of the, genuine concurrent spacings. Once you do this, a column data format for each resulting column is obviously going to be as appropriate as so. You're going to go with text. And once you've done that, you're going to click on finish. Now, once you've done this, you're going to click on OK and look at that. Now, John Smith has been separated into two separate columns. Excel splits the single column into two, which is very useful for cleaning imported data. And it's really useful and really fun to use something like this for yourself because it really keeps a proper concurrent and coexistent idea of how you're supposed to be manipulating data and handling it according to yourself. So, of course, we have the main gist of all these things, how you're going to want to work around them and how your general filtering works with the proper, data units and tables. So basically, that's the main idea of managing and creating data. That's how you work with large data sets. So we talked about setting up, different parts of data properly, and I'm going to go over the rules once again. Do make sure that there is one row per record. All right. Moving on, one column per attribute. Headers are going to be in the first row only. No blank rows or columns inside your data. Consistent data types in each column, and no totals inside the data range. Then we talked about how you can create a table with auto expansion, structured references, and built in filtering and sorting with total rows. We also talked about sorting data, custom sorting, sorting by cell, color, or font color, filtering data, number filters, text filters, date filters, multiple column filters, and clear all filters, including things like freeze panes. Moving on to find and replace, removing duplicates, text columns, and a whole lot more. So that is how you can manage your data and manipulate it accordingly to yourself, how you can work around with it, and how it gives you a clear, coexistent idea of how main data works. Now, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be getting into something really cool, and that is charts and data visualization. Now, numbers in a table communicate facts, all right? Charts are going to be communicating stories. A well chosen chart can make an absolute trend, comparison, or proportion instantly obvious. Now, that is something that would take minutes to understand from raw numbers. But the wrong type of chart for your data is worse than no chart at all. Understanding which chart to use when is the key skill here. So let me give you the fundamental chart types and when to use each one. So first of all, there is going to be the bar chart. Now, bar or column charts are for comparing values, and you can compare them across different types of categories. Okay, so which product had sold the most, which sales rep had the highest revenue. Then we move over to line charts. Now, the line charts are for showing trends over time. How did revenue change from January to June? The connected line makes it quite easy to see direction and rate of change. Then there's pie charts, which are for showing parts of a whole. So, what percentage of revenue came from each product? Use only when you have a small number of categories, like five or fewer, and the proportions are meaningfully different. Then there's scatter charts, which are for showing relationships between two different variables. Is there a connection between units sold and revenue? Then there's area charts, like line charts, but the area under the line is filled in. It's pretty good for cumulative totals over time. Then, of course, there's combo charts as well, where you can combine two chart types, like a bar and a line, and they're for comparing two different measures on the same chart. So, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating our first chart. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and select the sales rep column. We're going to hit control. And with the sales rep, we're also going to choose our revenue column. Now, as you can see, both non-adjacent columns are going to be chosen if we click on control. Now, let me create a column chart showing a revenue by sales rep. Now, once you select the data by holding control and clicking the column headers, actually, let's make it cleaner. Let's create a summary table first. So below the data, create a summary table of these two things. So right here in 24, we're going to go ahead and write sales rep summary. Okay. So once you've written this, you're going to click on enter. I'm going to leave one space. And now what we're going to be doing is we're going to start creating the summary for ourselves. So let's go with 4 names. Let's go with Ali, Sarah, David, and Daniel. All right. So we have Ali, Sarah, David, and Daniel. Now, once we have these names in the next box, you actually don't need to, have a proper summary. You can simply use the SUMIF function for yourself. So we have SUMIF. Let's go with table. Of course, we already have that table for ourselves. So we're going to write in table. And once you write in table 2, what you're going to do from here is you're going to add in the main column you want to work on. So we're going to write in sales rep. Once that is done, you're going to do comma, quotations. We're going to write in Ali. Then what we're going to do is we're going to close that down, comma, and table 2. And then finally, we're going to hit revenue. So once you write this down, you're simply going to close the tab. And as you can see, it's going to go ahead and give you a summary through revenue. So once we click on enter, as you can see, it's going to start giving you that summary. So what you're simply going to want to do is you're going to copy this. Okay. We're going to come right here. Obviously, we're going to go ahead and double click this for ourselves. We're going to paste this. And now for each section, we're simply going to change the name. So let's go with Sarah. And we're going to do the same here. Paste. We're going to go with David. Now, what this is basically doing is it's giving us a general summary of the names that we're providing it. And then finally, for Daniel, we're going to do the same. And what we're simply going to want to do is just change Daniel's name. So we're going to come right here. We're going to write in Daniel, enter, and here we have it. Now, this builds the table with SUMIF formulas. Now, select these 2 columns. All right. Now, once you've done that, you're going to go over to insert. Once you come over to insert, what you're going to do is you're going to come here in the charts group. Now, over here, you have a lot of different charts. Okay, so you have pie, you have line, you have statistic, but the one we want is column or bar chart. And once we click on that, right here, we have a lot of columns. Now we have 2D columns, 3D, 3D bars, 2D bars. We're going to go with the first one, which is the clustered column. Now, once you click on this, this basically inserts the chart that you can obviously move around. So look at that. Pretty incredible, right? A chart is going to appear. Excel creates it with default formatting. It's functional, but let's make it significantly better. Now, to customize a chart, you're simply going to go ahead and click on it. Now, when a chart is selected, you see 3 new tabs appear in the ribbon. All right. So you have chart design, you have format, and sometimes you're going to get layout as well. You can also see 2 icons on the right side of the chart, a plus sign, then a paintbrush, and in some cases, you can also get chart filters. So first of all, what you're going to do is you're going to click on the title text on the top of the chart. And what you can do is you can actually change the title text for yourself. So let's say I'm going to call it sales rep chart. All right. So we're going to name it this. And once you've done that, just click on anywhere else and it chooses the name. Then there are the chart elements, which can be added through the plus button. Now, this adds or removes elements like axis titles, data labels, grid lines, legend, and trend line. So you're going to click the plus button and you're going to check these data labels for yourself. Okay. Numbers now appear above each bar. So if we go over to data labels, as you can see, the numbers are going to appear. Now, this is very useful. You can also go ahead and add in axis titles. Now, this adds a label to the vertical axis as well. And it adds it to the horizontal aspect as well, which is pretty cool. It gives you a pretty nice chart vibe to it. Now, moving on, you can go ahead and click on the paint brush as well, because this helps you choose from a gallery of pre-made color schemes and styles. So go ahead and pick one that looks clean and professional. So let's say I want to go with something like, let's go with this. This gives a pretty good and decent vibe. So once you have chosen your theme, you can change it to a horizontal bar chart as well if you want to. Because currently, as you can see, it is vertical. So if you want to change the type of it, you can simply go ahead, right click on the chart, and right up here, you get change chart type. You can click on change chart type, and from here, you can change it from a column to an bar chart. And from here, you can choose any vertical bar. So let's say I'm going to go with this and click on OK. And look at that. Now, our vertical chart is a horizontal chart. Then there is moving and resizing. So you can click and drag the chart to move it around as you go on, as you can see. And you can click and drag the corners of the edge to resize it. So you can simply do this and make it bigger or smaller as you go on. Pretty incredible, right? Then you can move it to its own sheet as well. So basically, if we right click on it, and over here you see move chart, if we click on this, you can simply move it to a new sheet. You can name it anything, and you can object it in different things like expenses. So if we click on OK, what's going to happen is a new sheet is going to be made where the new chart will appear for us. Okay. Now, moving on, there's something called line charts as well, which create everything by standard. So let's create a line chart showing how total revenue has changed over the months. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that for us. Now, first of all, we're going to have to create a summary for this. So let's say I'm going to delete all of this in the first line. Let's go ahead and add in month. And right here, we're going to go ahead and add total revenue. Now, once these things are in, first of all, we're going to add in our months. So there's Jan, Feb, March. Let's go with April. And let's go with May. Once we've done that, again, we're going to use our SUMIF formula for ourselves. So I'm going to go ahead and double click that, paste it. And once that is done, we're going to change up the values a little. So in this, instead of sales rep, we're going to go with month. Once we've done that, what's going to happen is you're going to change the name to a month. I'm going to change it to Jan, and table revenue is going to stay the same. So what you're going to do is you're going to add it right here. And as you can see, for Jan, it will round up all the January resources and add it right here. And the same is going to be happening for the other formula. So simply go ahead and copy the formula for yourself. Once we have done that, you can accordingly work along with the formula. So add this here, add the formula that we just copied. And again, the reason I tell you to copy a formula is because you don't constantly need to go ahead and slander yourself and keep on adding a new formula. Just go ahead to this section, change the wording, and you're good to go. Then we have March. Okay, so simply come here, add in the data, and we write in March. Now, for March, as you can see, we don't have a lot of great resources. So, in the case of April, again, you're going to go ahead over here. Now, in some cases, do make sure that your wording is correct. So, as you can see, I wrote NAR, which is why it didn't give me the right value. So in Excel, one thing you are going to want to make sure that it doesn't have a lot of room for mistakes, because in that case, your data is nonetheless going to be wrong in the eyes of Excel at least. Now here, simply write in May and you're good to go. So this is your very own summary. Now what you're going to do is you're going to select these two columns, and once you're done with that, go to Insert, come to the Chart section. And now what we're going to do is we're going to create a line chart for ourselves. Now, once you go to the line chart, you can choose line chart with markers. Now, there's different line charts over here, but line chart with markers are much better to work with. So we're going to click on this. And as you can see, we have a very full-fledged line chart in front of us. Now, the line chart immediately shows the trend. You can see whether revenue is generally going up, going down, or fluctuating over the months. Moving on, you can also add a trend line. So if we right click on the chart, now over here, you're going to get the option to add a trend line for yourself. Okay. In the case you don't get that option here, you can also go ahead and add the trend line through chart elements. So we're going to click on this. And as you can see, this is your trend line. Now, trend line basically displays your equation accordingly. Okay. You can also choose what kind of trend line you actually want to see. Do you want it to be linear? Do you want it to be straightforward? That, of course, depends on you. Now, the trend line shows the general direction even when individual data points are going to go up and down. So once this is done, let's go ahead and create a pie chart for what percentage of total revenue came from the months. All right. So let's go ahead and remove this. We're going to keep the same column and data. Once we've chosen this, what we're going to do from here is we're going to go ahead back to insert, and right here in charts, we have pie charts. Okay. We're going to click on the pie charts. And once you have done this, simply go with the pie chart over here. Once you've done that, here we have our very own pie chart opened up in front of us. Now, what you can do is you can click once on the chart to select all slices, then click one more on a specific slice to choose that one. Now, if you drag it a little outward, you can explode the chart, just as so. You can separate it to make it look emphasized. Then there's data labels as well in pie charts, which work pretty cool. So basically, what I mean by this is if you click on the plus icon over here and turn on your data labels, as you can see, it will start labeling all the data in that specific pie chart as well. And the more you click on the elements, the more the data labels are going to act up. Okay. Now, you can change it to a percentage table as well. Basically, all the data labels that you see, what can happen is you're going to come over to this section, or you can go even into chart elements. In data labels, you can get more options over here. And once you go into the more options, you can choose this section. And once you've done that, on the right hand side over here, you get different label options, right? So in label options, you can choose what kind of plotting you want. Now, those could be different text options, those could be label options. And over here, I can actually change it to a percentage. And look at this. Basically, we have turned the normal labels to percentage labels. Now, once we've done this, you can also change your pie chart to a donut chart. So basically, if you come over here, right click on it, click on change chart type, you can turn it into a donut chart as well. So basically, once we've done this, our chart will now be a donut. It's similar to pie, but with a hole in the middle, basically. Often looks much cleaner in modern reports, so you can work along with it if it is aesthetically pleasing to you. This, of course, depends on you and your general work ethic. Okay, then moving on, let me show you one more useful chart technique. Okay, the combo chart with a secondary axis. Now, this is useful when you want to show two metrics on the very same chart. But obviously, if those two metrics have very different scales. So, for example, you have revenue in thousands and units sold with single or double digits. Now, if you put both on the very same axis, the units line would be invisible compared to revenue. So in this case, let's say we come up over here and we create a summary table according to our requirements. Okay. So over here, I'm going to go with month. Over here, I'm going to go with revenue. And over here, I'm going to go with units. Once we've done that, of course, we're going to add in Jan, Feb, March, and let's go with May. Let's skip April for now. Now over here, again, all you're simply going to do is you're only going to go ahead and write SUMIF. Now, you can either add the cell specified, or what you can do to, get a good idea of it is just write SUMIF as so. But obviously do make sure that you have the correct, linings of it. But, it depends on your formula entirely, of course. The SUMIF can be for your revenue and your units. So the formula that I gave you, simply add it here. So in this case, we have revenue for this section, and the formula for this is going to be just this changed. So we have table 2. Once we have table 2 in, we're going to go ahead right here and open up the bracket, write in units. And once this is in, add that. And look at this. Just as so, you can go ahead and add in your units as you go on. But of course, do make sure that the formula you're writing is correlated to your actual work. So in this case, we're going to come right here. We're going to write months. Obviously, for Jan, table 2, we're going to go with units. Once you've done that, we're going to hit enter. And once you hit enter, what will happen is it will take the table units, close it down, and give us the units for that specific section. So come here, we have this table, double click, enter your code. So we have revenue for Feb now. Once this is done, obviously I'm going to copy the formula, enter, that is done. Come here, paste, come to revenue, and we're simply going to go ahead and change it to units. And just as so, you can go ahead and copy paste the formula as you go further down. All right. So for now, I'm just going to give it the random values because you get the main point of it. So once this is in, what we're going to want to do from here on out to actually create our combo charts and secondary units is you're going to choose all of these 3 charts. You're going to go back over to insert. Once you go back over to insert, here you have different charts for yourself, right? So we will go ahead and find an combo chart for us. We're going to click on combo chart, and you can choose any of these combo charts over here. We're clustered column, line on secondary axis, and stacked area. So obviously, we're going to go with clustered column line. You're going to choose that. Once you choose that, it creates us a graph over here. Now, Excel creates a chart with revenue as bars and units as a line. But if the scales are very different, you can simply go to your chart design and you can simply go ahead and change chart type. It's pretty simple. And once you're here, in the combo section that you see over here, you can click on the secondary axis for yourself. Okay. That depends on you on whatever axis you want to go with. You have stacked area custom column and line on secondary axis. You can go ahead with that. And as you can see, the line works now. Now, revenue uses the left axis and units uses the right axis. Both are clearly visible and readable despite having different scales. So that pretty much brings an end to our charts section. So that is how you can pretty much appropriately work with charts and get a proper data visualization for yourself using different types of charts, using different types of, lines, bars, and different graphs. And of course, data visualization is a big winner when it comes to Excel because it gives us such a great way to work along with. And it really gives us a good idea on how you're going to want to work with data. Now, once this is done, we're going to move over to something very cool. And I'd say Excel's most powerful analysis tool, pivot tables. Now, you're probably wondering, what is a pivot table and why should you learn it? Now, pivot tables are one of the most powerful features in Excel, and I want you to forget any intimidation you may have about them, because once you understand the actual concept of it, you will find them incredibly intuitive. A pivot table takes a large data set and lets you summarize it. You can also analyze it and explore it dynamically without writing a single formula. Think about our sales data. We have 20 rows covering 5 months, 4 sales rep, 4 regions, and 4 products. So, to answer a question like what was the total revenue by the product broken down by month, you would need a pretty complex arrangement of SUMIFS formulas. A pivot table answers that in about 30 seconds and lets you immediately ask a different question just by dragging and dropping fields. So let me build one from scratch and walk you through it step by step. So, firstly and foremost, we're going to create a pivot table. So, click anywhere inside of your data. So in my case, I'm going to go with this over here. Okay, we're going to do that. Now, go to the Insert tab. And once you've gone to the Insert tab, basically, you're simply going to go over to Pivot Table right here. So you're going to click on this, and it's going to open this up. Excel has automatically detected the range of your table. Keep the default setting, no need to do anything different, and simply change the setting to New Worksheet. Now, once you've done that, this puts the table on its own sheet so it doesn't interfere with your data. Simply click on OK, and once you click on OK, it's going to come right here. Now, a new sheet opens, and on the right side, you see the pivot table fields pane. On the left, you see an empty grid waiting for data. Now, a pivot table fields pane has 2 sections. So one's at the top, which is a list of all of your column headers like months, sales rep, region, product, units, sold, revenue, target, achieved. And at the bottom, you have 4 areas called filters, columns, rows, and values. Now, this is the heart of the pivot table. You drag fields from the top list into these 4 areas, and Excel summarizes your data accordingly. So you have rows where whatever field you put here appears on the row labels on the left-hand side. This is usually a category you want to group by. Then there's columns. Basically, whatever field you put here appears as column headers across the top, which creates a matrix style view. Then there's values, where whatever field you put here gets calculated, summed, counted, averaged, and fills the body of the pivot table. And then there's filters, which creates a filter at the top of the pivot table, letting you filter the entire pivot by that field. So let's build our first analysis. Now let's answer what was the total revenue for each sales rep. So what you're going to do is you're going to drag sales rep and you're going to drag it into rows. Okay, so I'm going to bring it here and we're going to drag revenue down to the values area. Now instantly, you're going to have a table right here showing total revenue for each sales rep. The grand total at the bottom shows the overall total. That's it. A 2-second operation. Let's go further. Let's add the month dimension. So we're going to take the months and we're going to drag it to our column area. And as you can see, now we have a matrix. Sales rep on the rows, months across the columns, and revenue at each intersection. You can see at a glance how each sales rep performed each month. Notice how the grand total column on the right shows each rep's total, and the grand total row at the bottom shows each month's total, and the bottom right cell is the overall total that you have. Okay. Now let's talk about changing the value calculation. So basically, in the values section, you have sum of revenue, right? By default, when you add a number field to values, Excel uses sum, but you can actually change this. So once we click on it, you have value field settings. You can open that up. And over here, you can choose sum, count, average, max, min, product, count numbers, std dev, var, whatever you want. So let's change it to average real quick. So once click on average, click OK. Now each cell is going to show the average revenue per transaction. So since we have multiple rows per rep per month, change it back to sum. Okay, so I'm going to bring it right here and you're going to change this to sum right as so. Now let's add a filter as well. You can drag region to the filters group. So once we bring it here, at the top of the pivot table now shows only the northern region data. So if we click over here, you can click on that, click on OK, and look at that, just the northern region. So you can go ahead and change it as you go on. The entire pivot table is going to show north region data, instantly filtering a complex analysis with one click. So you can go ahead, click the filter once again. You can click on select multiple items, and you can also go with north and south. But for now, I'm just going to go with all and click on OK. Now, what's going to happen is you can click anywhere on the pivot table. And right now, the pivot table doesn't work because it doesn't look great. So let's fix that. In the pivot table design tab, which is right here, you'll see a gallery of different built-in styles over here. Pick one with a good contrast. Okay, so let's say I'm going to open this up right here. Now, once we have opened this up for ourselves, let's go with something like, let's go with this. This works pretty well. Now, once we've gone with that, basically, you can click on a value in the pivot table. Like, let's say I'm going to click over here. We're going to right click it, and over here, it will give you number format. Okay. So once you click on this, from here, what you can do is you can actually apply currency formatting, choosing the decimal places. So I'm going to keep it like this. And as you can see, now the number format is actually in dollars. Okay, the revenue shows a dollar sign and decimal places, which is pretty cool. Then the columns may be narrow. So what you can do is you can choose the column headers. So in my case, let's say I'm going to go with this. And once it is done, you can simply do what I've, initially told you to do is just double click the columns as so in between, and it will actually go ahead and fix it up. So I'm going to double click, and you're going to be able to see that it will adjust it according to itself. Then we have renaming field headers. So you can click on the cell that says sum of revenue and retype it as total revenue. So click anywhere outside, click on it back, and it will change it for you. So over here, let's say I'm just going to go and write total. Once you do that, click outside, and now we have total revenue. Pretty cool, right? Then we also have slicers, which are visual filters for pivot tables. Now, slicers are visual filter buttons that sit on top of the spreadsheet and let you filter the pivot table by clicking buttons rather than using drop-downs. They're quite great for dashboard style reports. So, what you can do is you can go over to the pivot table design, and right here, what you can do is you can actually insert a slicer. So basically, you're either going to find it here or you can go into insert, and generally insert, you're going to get the slicer option. Okay. Now, this also depends on your version. If you don't have the correct version, you might not get the slicer over here. So do make sure to check if you have the correct version. If you don't see it, you can simply go ahead and add in slicer as well. And as you can see, it's going to give you this. So we can go with that, and you can choose what kind of slicer you want for yourself. So once we go with whole slicer, I'm going to click on OK. And once we click on OK, basically what it does is it adds a slicer throughout your design. Okay. Moving on, you can also go ahead and initialize the rows for yourself depending on your general design of your pivot chart. And let's say over here in Slicer, once we click on it, you can go ahead and check the boxes for filtrations, right? So I'm going to go with product, and I'm going to go with region. We're simply going to click on OK. And as you can see, two slicers are going to appear on the sheet. Now you have clickable buttons for each product and region, which is pretty cool. So let's say I'm going to click on laptop in the product slicer, and the pivot table instantly updates to show only laptop data. And let's say I'm going to go with headphones, or let's go with something like mouse, click on north, and now we get it only for the northern data. Now, multi-select and slicers can be done through control and clicking multiple buttons. And to clear a slicer, click the X icon on the top right corner of the slicer, and it will go ahead and redo it. You can resize and reposition slicers as well by simply holding them, dragging them out, and going to their corners and resizing them according to yourself. Okay, so just as so, you can change their workings as well. Then moving on, a pivot chart can also be created. A pivot chart is a chart that is directly linked to your very own pivot table. So when you filter or change the pivot table, the chart updates automatically. So you're going to go over to the pivot table design tab. Okay. And right here, you're going to get the option to create a pivot chart. Another case, if you don't get it, you can simply come over here to pivot chart. And as you can see, you get tons and tons of different charts here to work with. So let's go ahead and choose a clustered bar. Okay, there's different stacks over here that you can choose. I'm simply going to go with this one. And as you can see right here, we've created a summary table or a chart to our pivot. Now, this is the foundation of interactive Excel dashboards. All right. Pivot tables with slicers and pivot charts can create surprisingly powerful reporting tools without any advanced technical knowledge. Now, something very important, when you add or change data in the source data sheet, the pivot table does not automatically update. you do have to refresh it. So right click anywhere on the pivot table. And once you do that, you're going to hit refresh and it will go ahead and refresh values for itself. So to have Excel ask you to refresh when you open the file, right click on it. And once you right click on it, you have pivot table options. You can go over to the data tab right here. And over here, it gives you refresh data when opening the file. And it's going to automatically refresh now. Always remember to refresh in case after adding new data. It's just much better and much more simpler as you go on. Now, moving on, once we have gone through all of this, pivot tables, all data visualizations, let's get into data validation and data integrity. Now, data validation is basically a feature that controls what can be entered into a set. You set rules, and if someone tries to enter something that violates the rules, Excel rejects it with an error message, as it naturally should. Now, this is essential for shared workbooks where multiple people are going to enter the data. It prevents any type of typos, wrong formats, and invalid values for corrupting your data set. So, let's go over to our expenses sheet. Head on back here. And over here, the most common use of data validation is creating a drop down list for yourself. So over here, basically, we're going to click on the column of our expense tracker right here. And once we have done this, what you can do is you can pretty much go ahead and create a general drop down. So click on the cell or cells where you want the drop down. So let's say I'm going to come over here with our drop down, right? So from here, you're going to go over to your data tab. And here, you're going to get the option for data validation. Now from here, choose data validation, and it opens up this dialog. Now, in this section, in the allow dropdown, you can choose list. And in the source bar, you can either type the values of different things separated by commas, or what you can do is just write reference a range of cells. So in our case, let's say I'm going to go with this right here. And once we've done that, you're going to click on OK. Now, once you click on OK, it might give you a little data validation errors. In our case, as you can see, we have now created our very own dropdown. Or what you can do, moreover, is just create a dropdown through your list. Now, you can ignore blanks, and you can also go ahead and choose all the different types of values that you want to go ahead with. So I'm just going to choose these, close it up, click on OK. And of course, you do need to make sure that, the value that you're creating must match one of the listed items. The blank are going to be ignored, but obviously that is going to depend on you. That depends on how you choose to create your validation system. So just make sure that the column you're working along with has the same range of values that you're giving it, right? Because without the actual values inserted in them, without the actual values given to them, the drop down won't work. So as you can see, you can go ahead and change the drop down to whatever values you find it pleasable. And that is how incredibly and amazingly this works. Now, once you've done that, you can apply and test a drop down, and when you click on that cell, a drop down is going to appear for you. So you can click it and choose from the list, and if you try to type something not in the list, Excel is going to show an error. So to apply this validation to the entire column B, select all the rows, setting up the data validation, and that way any new rows you add to the column will also have the very specific dropdown for themselves. You can also restrict numbers to a specific range. So what you can do is, let's say we're going to choose the units, right? Now, again, go to data validation. Now, over here, you're going to allow whole number, all right? And the data, let's keep it between. Minimum, let's go with 0. And maximum, let's go with let's go with 50. Now, once we do that, if someone tries to enter, minus 50 or 9 million, Excel is going to reject it. Let's go with 100 on this. Okay. So we're going to hit OK. And now in this column, if I try to write this, like let's say I'm going to remove this from here, and I'm going to go ahead and write this big value. Now, usually Excel will simply go and reject the whole value. But you also do need to make sure that you need to select the whole column. Okay. So go ahead and choose this whole column. Go to data validation once again, and you can extend the data validation according to yourself. So look at this. So any column with the wrong data, Excel will give an error. So as you can see, it says this value doesn't match the data validation. So what I can do is if I write 9 over here, look at that. Didn't give me an error, right? So pretty cool. Then you can do date validation as well. So basically, data validation, and what you can do is like, let's say I'm going to go ahead and choose these over here. You can go here, allow, go to date, and you can choose the start date, end date for yourself, and any date outside of that will not be allowed to be added in. That's how it works. Now, back in the data validation dialog, basically there is the input messages tab, which is right here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come over to input message. So it shows a tooltip when the user clicks the cell, okay, giving guidance on what to enter, like title, let's go with the category, and input message could be choose, let's go with the correct category, okay, or something going to say that. Click on OK. So if anyone comes over here, as you can see, it's going to give them an input message that choose the right category to add over here. Then there's the error alert tab. So if we come back over here, there's error alert. So this controls what happens when invalid data is entered into the system. So first of all, there's style stop, which rejects the entire entry. Then there's warning, which alerts but allows the users to override and keep the invalid entry. And then there's information, which just shows a message and user can enter anything they want. So customize the error title and message to be helpful. Invalid entry, please select a valid category from drop-down list. And once you click on OK, your validation is going to work. So that is how, data validation and general data integrity is going to work. So from here on out, let's move over to another great thing, printing and page setup. Now, before printing, always check print preview. Okay, so this is printing and page setup. What you're going to do is you're going to hit Control and you're going to hit P. Now, what that does is it brings you here. Now, this opens up the print dialog with a preview on the right. Now, what you'll often find is that Excel is trying to print your spreadsheet on many pages or the columns don't fit on a single page. So let's go ahead and fix that. Basically, you're going to go ahead and click on the page layout tab on the ribbon right here, right? Now, once we've gone with this, over here, the page layout tab has everything related to how your spreadsheet looks when printed. So first of all, there is page orientation, which is right over here. Now you can either choose portrait, which is tall, and landscape, which is wide. Now for wide spreadsheets with many columns, landscape usually works much better. So let's say if I were to go with landscape, now my orientation is going to be in landscape. Then there's page size. Now A4 is the standard size in most of the world. Letter is standard in the US. You can choose A4 as you go on. Then there's margins. Now, margins or narrow margins give you more room for data. Wide margins are going to look professional for reports. So it depends on you. on what you want to go with. I'm going to go with narrow. Then there is scale to fit. Now, this is crucial because under width and height dropdowns, you can set your spreadsheet to fit to one page wide and one page tall. Okay. So, of course, it will depend on you on how you're going to want to scale it to fit. And of course, if the data is too long or the data does not work pretty efficiently, you are going to want to make sure that, scale it either automatically or you can choose it according to one page. So let's go with one page tall, one page wide, and scaling it for long data. Then what's going to happen is in page layout, you can go ahead and get print titles for yourself, which is basically this over here. Now, if your spreadsheet is multiple pages long, print titles let you specify rows or columns to repeat on every printed page. This way, the header row appears at the top of every printed page, not just the first. Now, in rows to repeat at top, you're going to click the selector and click on row 1. All right. So you're going to go to page, and once you come over to page, basically you're going to want to make sure that in rows you're going to have the proper repeats. But of course, it will, depend a lot on how your sheet works. So in rows, we're going to go with this and, click on row 1 as you go on. Maybe we have row 1. We're going to choose that. And then in columns to repeat at the left, you'd specify a column if you want it on every printed page, useful for wide printing spreadsheets. So I'm going to go with this, and we're going to add that for ourselves. So once this is done, you can check the print preview for yourself, and look at that. It creates this preview. Pretty cool, right? So it is much more uniform and great now. Now, Excel automatically creates page breaks as well based on how much if it fits on a page. But sometimes you want control where pages break. So what you can do is you can actually come over to the View tab, and in the View tab, you can get a page break preview. So as you can see, it shows you how the page break works. Now you can see the dotted blue lines around it. So the automatic page breaks are going to happen here, and solid blue lines are going to be for manual breaks. So to add a manual page break, what you're going to do is obviously we're going to close this down, keep it to normal. And to add it, you can simply insert or remove page break as you go on. Then there's headers and footers as well, where you can basically go over ahead to your page layout. So basically, if you come over here, what's going to happen in this section is you can go over to your page setup. Okay. And of course, the layout is going to depend entirely on how your header and footers are going to work. So here in page setup, we have all of this going on. And in this section, what's going to happen is it will depend entirely on how you're going to want your headers and footers to work along with you. So come over here to insert. And once you come over here to insert, you can find headers and footers in this section. Once we click on that, what's going to happen over here is you can add text to the header or footer of every printed page. Common things to put in header footers are going to be your file name, your sheet name. So let's say I'm going to just call this expenses. And once the header is in, you can go ahead and add in the appropriate footer as well. So right here, we are going to have the appropriate things that we want. So once all of this is done, you can actually go ahead and click out of it. And once everything looks good to go, you have a proper printable form for yourself. And to get out of this page, you can simply go ahead, go to insert, get out of it as you want. Once everything looks good, you can go over to file and home, go on back, and generally the headers and footer sections are going to go ahead and move out of there. So, once all of this is done, basically, you've gotten the main gist of how you're going to want to work with Excel with most of the features working along. Now, as we go on, there are a lot of more little tips and tricks as well that you do need to know, which are time saving tips, shortcuts, and power user techniques. So, first of all, let's talk about a little essential keyboard shortcuts. Now, keyboard shortcuts are the single biggest productivity multiplier in Excel. Every shortcut you learn saves you seconds, and seconds are going to go ahead and multiply into hours over the course of a career. So, let me give you the most important ones grouped by category. So, first of all, there is going to be Control S, which is to save your document. So, if I go ahead and click on Control S, my document gets saved. Then there is, like, let's say I'm going to write something over here and I make a mistake, right? I do that. Control Z is going to undo whatever I've done. Control Y will redo whatever I've undone. Then there's Control P, which is going to go ahead and print things for me. Then there is Control W, which closes the workbook. So if I do Control W, as you can see, it will go ahead and close my workbook as so. And what I can do if, I actually want to open up the workbook again is just click on this. And as you can see, it opens up again. And then there is F12, which saves your work as. So if I do that, as you can see, it will save it as a different file if I want to. Then there's navigations as well, where you can choose Control Home, which basically takes you to A1, Control End, which takes you to the last cell. Then there is Control Arrow keys, which basically jumps you through the whole system. Control G or F5, which helps you go to a dialog tab and you can reference it. And then there is Control F that takes you to find and replace, and Control H that takes you to the replace section. Moving on, you have Control A, which selects all the cells. Then there is Control Shift and arrows, which, basically select from current cell to end of data in that direction. Control Shift End, which select from cell to last used cell. Then there is Shift and Space, which basically select the entire row. Then there is Control and Space, which select the entire column. Control C for copy, Control X for cut, Control V for paste, Control D for fill down, Control R for fill right, delete to clear cell content, F2 to edit cell, escape for cancel entry, and Alt plus enter for a new line within a cell. And you can also work with the formatting. So come over to text, hit Control B, and it turns it bold. Hit Control I, and it turns it italic. Hit Control U, and it's underlined now. Control 1, which opens up the format dialog. Control Shift $sign to apply currency. Control Shift percentage to apply percentage. Control Shift hashtag to apply date format. Alt HH, which basically is the format color picker. Pretty cool, right? So once you've done all of this, you basically have the proper demonstrations of each category of shortcuts. Okay. Moving on, you have flash fills as well. So basically, if I come over to the expenses tab, flash fill is a feature that recognizes patterns and automatically fills in data. It is one of those features that feels like magic when you first use it. So let's say a column is full of names, right? You want to extract just first names into column B. So in B1, we have John, first name from A1, and Jane. Excel recognizes this pattern. And basically, what you can do is press enter or control E to accept flash fill, right? So you can do that. Now it says we looked at all the data to your selection. So a couple of examples need to be entered, right? So make sure that you do have a consistent character recognition and a consistent work ethic that will give Excel a good idea. And Flash Fill will do it for you because Flash Fill can handle many patterns, extracting parts of text, combining text from multiple columns, reformatting dates or phone numbers, and even changing the case. Then there's quick analysis tools as well, where you can select a range of data with numbers. So select a range of data. So let's say I'm going to do this. Now do make sure to just choose one range of data. Okay. Now, once you have chosen this one range of data, if it is plain numbers, in that case, what will happen? Like for example, we choose this. It is going to give us this lightning icon over here. Now, if we click on this, it's going to give this up to us. Now, this is the quick analysis tool. Now, it gives you one-click access to formatting, charts, totals, tables, sparklines, and it's pretty much a fast shortcut for common tasks without actually navigating menus. Now, sparklines that you can clearly see over here is basically tiny charts that fit inside a single cell. They give you a pretty quick visual of trends within your data row. And basically, you can find an area next to your monthly summary data pretty easily. You can select the range of monthly revenue values for one sales rep. So if I go with, line over here, it will go ahead and change that accordingly for me. And sparklines are pretty cool. They give you a proper mini chart right in front of it. And as you can see, it works pretty well for your lines. A tiny line chart appears in the next cell. You can style it using the Sparkline tab that appears in change color and add markers for high and low points. Adding sparklines for each sales rep row to instantly see trends side by side works pretty incredibly. And instead of always referring to cells by their addresses, you can give ranges meaningful names. Now, this makes your formula much more readable. So, what you can do is you can go over to the Formulas tab, and over here you can go to Define Name. So once you do this, you can type a name directly. So we have expense amounts. Okay. Once we do this, we click on OK. And once you do that, basically, it will choose a proper, expense for you. Now we have a proper formula, and that is good to go. Now instead of, writing is equals to sum D4 D10, you can simply go ahead and write sum. And now all you need to do is write price. So look at that. If you write in price for yourself and close out the tab, it's going to sum all of that. Pretty cool, right? Now, to manage, name ranges, you can go ahead and manage the names as well. Edit, delete, or view all name ranges in the specified workbook. And of course, it will depend on how you want to apply it to your actual cells. But once you have done that, it creates a pretty standard and straightforward working. So basically, putting it all together, you can go ahead and work with Excel with wonders. Now, basically, in all of this, what we saw is how you can go ahead and created a sales data to build everything: total revenue, total units, adding different types of data, getting bar charts, line charts, pie charts, data visualizations with pivot tables to for slicers to fill things in. We talked about how you can, create tables, set up dashboards for yourself, get different types of views for different types of things as you go on. Moving on, you can also get different types of KPI cards for yourself. We have proper data visualizations in front of ourselves, added charts, added pivot tables, got the proper formatting that you need with proper themes and structures for people to get a pleasing look at your work. So once everything is done and you have worked around and created your thing, what you're simply going to do from here is you're going to first of all save your work. Now, of course, save early and save often. Every 5 minutes, just hit Control S on your keyboard, which saves your file in its current location with its current name. Now, the first time you save a new file, it opens the Save As dialog to let you choose where to save and what to name it. Now, the file format could be XLSX, which is standard Excel format. You're going to use this for everything unless you have a specific reason not to. Then there's XLSM, so Excel with macros enabled, required if your workbook contains VBA macros. CSV, which is comma separated values, plain text format, no formatting, no formulas, just raw data. And PDF, which exports a sheet or workbook as a PDF for sharing a read-only version. Then there's autosave, so if using Microsoft 365 and storing files in OneDrive or SharePoint, autosave will keep your files continuously saved. Now you can also export your page as a PDF. So you can simply hit export and it says create PDF XPS document. Once you click on that, this will create the PDF document. So let's say I'm going to hit publish. And what happens over here is everything is going to be published in your PDF software as you go over here. Pretty incredible, right? And moving on, you can also go ahead, share, and collaborate. So you can go over to File, you can go over to Share, and you can actually share it with people. So send it as an attachment, send it as PDF, or actually share it with people to save it to your cloud and then share around the document as you go on. Okay. Then moving on, once you have gotten the main ideas of sharing, collaboration, and exporting, you're pretty much done. So this is the final section. What do you want to learn next? So congratulations. Seriously, you've made it through a lot of material. Now, if you followed along with everything in this course, you now have a solid working knowledge of Excel that puts you ahead of a large portion of spreadsheet users. Now, let me be clear about where you stand. You know how the interface works inside out. You know how to enter format and organize data professionally, how to write formulas including sum, average, if, VLOOKUP, SUMIF, COUNTIF, and more, how to sort, filter, and manage data sets, how to create and customize charts, how to build pivot tables with slicers, how to use data validation to protect data integrity, how to set up printing correctly, productivity, shortcuts, and power use techniques, and how to build a real dashboard. Now, this is genuinely useful for a skill set, and most people who say they know Excel know a fraction of what you know now. So, if you want to go deeper into Excel, here are the ways to explore. Use more advanced formulas, functions like index or match. Use Power Queries, a tool built into Excel for importing, cleaning, and transforming data from external sources. Power Pivots, macros and VBAs, Excel and Power BI, and practice. Okay. Make sure to go through all of these things. And basically, the best way to cement what you've learned is to use it on real problems. So, your next expense project, report, budget, or tracking task, do it in Excel. Apply what you've learned, look up what you don't know, and that's how expertise is built. So thank you for watching this entire course. If it helped you, please do make sure to like the video, leave a comment with what you're going to use for Excel, and subscribe for more tutorials. That is pretty much for me, and I'll be seeing all of you in the next video. Have a great day. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.